concerning wildlife. It's concerning a rhino.
A rhino? Blimey.
Right? Yeah, rhino. Okay. I used to live in Kenya when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And we were in this wildlife park in a grey Morris Minor. This rhino started chasing us. There's me and my sister in the back seat.
Right.
It was like something out of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
We were turning around saying, "Believe it, Dad. Just put your foot down, Dad. We're in a field. Put your foot down." This rhino was chasing us.
One from Mark here in Derby. Went on holiday for our first romantic holiday to Tunisia years ago. Decided to take my girl into a petting zoo. I got a bag of food to feed the animals. A giant goat then went for me, putting his front legs over my shoulders and proceeding to headbutt me over a fence into one of the pens, covering me in the food and making my nose bleed. I got out of the pen, then the goat and all his mates attacked me again, sending me running and screaming like a girl out of the zoo, with my girlfriend rolling with laughter on the floor.
A tarantula climbed up the bottom of the bed on the sheet.
Yeah.
And it walked all the way up. It's eyeball to eyeball.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what am I going to do when it climbs over my face? But then a miracle happened. It raised its 2 front legs and waved them around. And then it turned around and walked down the side of the sheet.
Boris Johnson had been attacked by an ostrich. The former PM was enjoying a safari trip with his family when the bird leaned into his car and went oi oi and pecked his hand. In footage shared online, he quickly jerked from the ostrich, don't dirty minds away from the ostrich, and shouted, "Oh, Christ, get hell," before driving off. And so I just set it out there. Have you been attacked by an animal? When I was about 7, says Trevor Jenkins, on holiday in Spain in the 70s, a monkey pulled my long hair. It was long because it was the 70s. I was in floods of tears. And as the family car drove out the car park, an elephant ripped off the car mirror. We got the message. Spanish animals aren't to be trusted. Jeremy, Brittany here from the United States. I was spurred by a rooster in my right foot a few years ago. Spurred? How do you get spurred by a rooster?
One here from Dan in Hampshire. Morning, Mike. Is an Aussie that has been dive-bombed by our version of the Magpie, which is much bigger.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Oh yeah, hello, welcome and good morning. 3 minutes past 6. I almost caught me by surprise there, because you know what it's like on a Monday. You wake up, you kind of go, yeah, are you ready for the week? Are you really? Are you getting fired up? Are you jumping out of bed? No, of course you're not. It's Monday morning, you're going, oh, that's a bit like me this morning. Anyway, listen, the sun's up. It's beautiful. It's fantastic. You need to know what you need to be doing this morning. You need to be paying attention to the greatest breakfast show that has ever been. Emma Wolf is here with us, helping us through. Very good morning to you, Emma. After a busy weekend, a beautiful weekend of weather, the Star's calling it Blowtorch UK. Apparently there's a big heat wave coming. It's going to be 24, 25 degrees. So if you don't like that sort of thing, I'm very sorry for you, because we've been in need of it, no doubt. I mean, how long before they start giving us some kind of wildfire alert that they say, whatever you do, be very careful in case your flat spontaneously combusts. Yesterday was London Marathon. Congratulations to everybody that ran in it, and great that everybody made so much money for charity, and tremendous that the 2 fathers from Southport ran in it. But just one thing, okay? If you say you're going to reopen the roads at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, reopen the bloody roads at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Do not reopen them at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, because some people might have come up from Sussex waiting to get home, but were unable to do so because the roads were still closed. And some of us had to drive around behind people carrying portable toilets around the back of the... I mean, I just don't want to get into it. Anyway, listen, here we are. There's big stories going on. Biggest story of the day. On the front page of the Daily Telegraph, Starmer's plan to cut migrants in order to fight reform. But guess what? Old stealthy Steve, as he's become known, Starmer, is waiting until after the elections on May the 1st, this Thursday, massive local elections, and of course that Runcorn by-election, which he's probably going to lose. Obviously I'm not allowed to say that because of Ofcom rules, but nevertheless, everybody knows what's going to happen. The point is this, right? He thinks that if he waits until after the election and promises things before the election, that people are that stupid that they'll go, oh, we better vote Labour then. Because, of course, this is what he's going to do after the election. I mean, do you think my head zips up the back, Starmer, you complete plonker? Rodney! So, we're going to talk about that. We're going to also talk about the big story at the weekend in which it said that if you're a landlord, they're coming for you because the government wants, under the guise of Serco, to have you rented out to illegal migrants. We don't care that you'd like to make a nice, cosy living, renting it out to families who live in this country and have lived in this country with people who were born in this country. No. No, we don't want to do that. What we want to do is rent out your place to migrants so that you will get a guaranteed income for 5 years, guaranteed council tax paid for 5 years, guaranteed repairs done for 5 years, all on the taxpayer. Thank you very much indeed. I mean, I don't know how much more of this we can take, to be honest. Also, we'll be talking about all manner of things, including a woman who apparently works for the NHS. They're, of course, asking for more money. The nurses, as are the teachers. Rachel Reeves, once again, will have to give it to them. So much to talk about. I've already used up all the time. Listen, this is Morning Glory. We'll get back to more of it in a minute after this. I mean, I'm sorry. It seemed to take an awfully long time to get into it here. Emma, very good morning to you.
There is a lot in the papers.
But seriously, I mean, a beautiful day, beautiful morning. I mean, it makes you feel energised, doesn't it?
Does.
You wake
I love
up and
Mondays.
you just go, yeah.
I love Monday.
I mean,
do.
I'm not against Mondays. It's just I woke up this morning and I was kind of like, not quite ready for this one because it was a bit of a nice weekend, a bit of lolling about in the garden, a bit of hanging about on the beach with the dog. You know, it was quite pleasant. So I sort of feel as though the summer has come, even though it's probably come a bit early.
And
but
it's only April.
It's only April.
So we've got this 800-mile heat dome heading our way. It's going to be hotter than Africa.
Well, they're calling it
and they're saying
Blowtorch UK in the Star.
Blowtorch UK, and some are saying 29 degrees. I mean, the Star, not known for under exaggerating. But yeah, they're talking about a serious
29 is a bit too hot, I think. But 24 is nice, I would say.
It is very hot. And we'll get the warnings about, please carry a bottle of water with you, please, open your windows but close them in the day and open them at night and all this nonsense.
Right, be careful in case there's a wildfire anywhere near where you live.
Wildfire, you wouldn't want to, throw any unlighted matches into a bracken around your garden.
Well, certainly that's not what you should be doing. But I mean, but there's not going to be just spontaneous wildfires, are there?
And people have dealt with kind of quite hot weathers. I mean, as a child, I remember quite hot summers. So I think people don't need to be treated like idiots.
No, exactly right. But don't worry, I'm looking forward to the next BBC weather map, which will be scorching red and, sort of on fire. They might as well just start setting it on fire and go, and over here in Southend, it's going to be on fire. It's so ridiculous. But let's talk about immigration, because that was a big story at the weekend, huge story at the weekend. Telegraph broke it, I think, saying that Serco now is asking, and they've been doing it for a while, actually. I think we've got the advert that they originally put out some months ago, because they have been doing it sort of regionally. They're now doing it nationally, basically saying, if you're a landlord, please donate your houses to us so that we can rent them out to the ever-burgeoning numbers of migrants coming into this country so we can give them all free housing. I mean, sorry.
So
I thought the idea was to put them into hotels until they've lost their asylum cases and then kick them out of the country.
Or, put them on a barge that never really took off, did it? At all. It certainly didn't take off.
What's happened to that Bibi Stockholm, by the way?
What has happened to Bibi Stockholm?
Is it still there?
I don't know. Is
it
still rampaging with Legionella disease? I have no idea.
Yeah, right.
This is really unfair to the British people. Someone wrote a really good comment piece, and I forget which paper, over the weekend, saying, if you're Karen, a single mum with 3 kids, trying to get a home, you're not going to be able to get a home.
No.
Because guess what? Landlords, and you can't blame them, are being told, as you say, hand over your property for 5 years or whatever it is.
We'll pay you every month,
everything's guaranteed. You don't need to worry. You might not want to have migrants in your home, but the whole thing will be dealt with. You will get your regular payments from the government, which, let's be honest, is a lot more secure than worrying about whether an English family is actually going to live in England.
And they're not going to default on the payment, and
they can't,
the council tax all paid.
Everything will be paid.
Everything's paid.
So once again, Mike, you've got migrants jumping the queue, and this is the problem here. And as for this kind of, we've got a plan about migrants and cutting immigration. Oh, it's funny that you've suddenly got a plan. Yeah, well, I'm quite surprised actually at the Telegraph.
Terrified. The Telegraph has sort of fallen for this story, which I'm really surprised about, because the Telegraph normally a very, very good paper. So Keir Starmer, this is their intro to the story, page 1. So Keir Starmer will tighten restrictions on immigration after this week's local elections, where reform is expected to seize hundreds of seats. What do you mean after? So, what, we're supposed to believe that Keir Starmer's going to go, oh, listen, don't worry, after I've got my arse kicked over the weekend, I'll start with some new immigration rules. Really?
They are terrified.
You're not going to do it.
They're terrified about Thursday. They've thought, oh, do you know what? This is too little too late. People are not idiots. And anyway, there is no detail on this. There's no flesh on the bones. Once again, it's another white paper will be published in the weeks following Thursday's vote, May the 1st. So I don't think this is not going to make any difference
to anyone.
It's not.
And this guy has no clue as to how to reduce migration.
Exactly.
He doesn't have a clue.
This is the area where they have failed more than almost any other. I mean, they've done plenty since the vote last July. But frankly, no, in terms of immigration, that was the promise. And look at how the numbers have soared in the intervening months.
Of course.
I mean, numbers are going up every single day.
What do you think? Record-breaking numbers.
Record numbers this week, I bet you, with this fight, with the hot weather.
Well, I said this a couple of weeks ago. You know, the most we've had, I think we've had 700 come over in one day. It's not going to be long before we get 1,000 in one day. We've already had something like 11,000 this year.
It's exceeding the birth rate of the UK, of people arriving here.
Yeah.
That's a major crisis.
Yeah. Here we go. The white paper is expected to be published both before May the 22nd, excuse me, when the Office for National Statistics publishes the latest net migration numbers, and May the 19th, when a summit between UK and European leaders takes place, resetting their relationship. I mean, I'm sick to death of him resetting his relationship. I wish he'd resettle his relationship with his wife, who he apparently decided to take to Rome at the weekend because everyone was talking about how they'd split up. And you know, you better bring her out, you better roll her out and make it look as if she loves you. Otherwise, people are going to start asking questions. Very weird, isn't it?
Very weird.
Very
yeah.
weird
I mean,
behaviour.
there are so many unanswered questions there, and we probably can't speculate. But
well, you can if you like. This is Morning Glory.
Well, no, I've thought
you can speculate as much as you want.
Well, I've thought it was utterly weird since we've never had any answers about Lord Ali. Yeah. I don't know why he was buying him articles of men's clothing.
And why was he buying his wife underwear?
What was going on there? Why was he choosing him glasses and things like that? Why was he advising on his wardrobe? Why was he living in his... or spending time in his house and filming political videos and Labour Party messages from his penthouse apartment?
And pretending that he wasn't there.
Well, we never had answers to that. Why was his son revising for his GCSEs there after the GCSEs were over?
But also last week when we were saying, where's Mrs Starmer? And all the sort of defenders of Starmer were going, well, what's it got to do with you? You know, women don't accompany their husbands everywhere they go. Well, she apparently went to Rome with him.
Exactly.
So what's the difference?
And of course the Prime Minister's wife would normally go to a big funeral. I mean, you know, President Trump's wife was there.
She only likes the big ones, doesn't she? She went to Washington when he first went, the first time, and now she goes to Rome. Morgan McSweeney, who's Sir Keir's influential chief of staff, has long believed that delivering on Labour's promise to bring down net migration is key to countering Reform's appeal. Has somebody been knocked on the head at the Telegraph? I mean, is that the most
I know. It does seem
Labour,
weirdly credulous from the Telegraph.
What's that all about? I mean, I don't give a damn what Morgan Sweeney thinks about whether or not, you know, the people want to hear whatever it is he wants to tell them. Delivering on Labour's promise to bring down net migration. They can't bring down net migration because they don't know what they're doing.
They don't know what they're doing. They don't have a plan. They have the most hopeless Home Secretary ever.
Yeah.
They have no borders. They have no plan for the borders.
Cooper.
I mean, really, Yvette Cooper...
What a plank.
What has she done?
Nothing.
Literally nothing on the police and nothing on our borders.
She's got nothing to say.
So she is not running the Home Office.
Every time they ask her a question on TV, she says, well, we prefer to leave that to the operational independence of whatever it is, whether it's Border Force, police. She doesn't think that the Home Office does anything, apparently.
I think she's actually running Rachel Reeves quite close for most hopeless person, apart from the Prime Minister.
Now that is a terrible, terrible accusation, that, because, I mean, Rachel Reeves this morning, once again in the firing line, front page of the Times, says, and this could have been predicted by you and I about 6 weeks ago, Reeves faces pay demands for teachers and nurses. Millions of public sector workers, including teachers and nurses, should be given pay rises of as much as 4%. Ministers have been told. Of course this is going to happen, because they know whenever the Labour government's in charge, they'll get the money.
They've absolutely set a precedent. They've caved in right at the very start on junior doctors, then they caved in over train drivers. They're absolutely
Teachers have already had a pay rise, by the way.
Teachers are going to be getting well over... so nurses are going to be getting well over 3%. Teachers on 4%. Police, prison officers and soldiers, because they can't strike, their settlements will be a lot higher. We're completely bankrupt. And the rest of us who work...
They're captured by the unions, it's simple.
Of course they are, they're in hock to the unions. And the rest of us who work in the private sector are not getting... No one else is getting these kind of pay rises.
No.
And who's paying for it?
Yeah, we are. Yes, of course. There is a bottomless pit to the public money. I think we've got that Serco ad calling all landlords. Let's have a look if we can see it, because this is quite remarkable. It's a still picture, basically, of an advert that they put out there on their website. They've since withdrawn it, basically. It says calling all landlords, and it's all about, you know, we can give you the greatest opportunity to make money. You know, we can help you out. Don't worry about the future, because we can copper bottom it for you. It'll be safe, it'll be secure, it'll be all sorts of things, and you'll make make a bucket load of money. But they've now taken it down on the basis that, you know, calling all landlords, you know, to basically subjugate yourselves and rent out properties to foreign invaders hasn't gone down that well. So they've decided maybe we take it down. And
also, isn't it interesting the way it's just quietly disappeared?
Yeah.
Because that has been up there for a while. Apparently it's been up there for several months.
Several months, yeah. Absolutely right.
But once again, you have migrants who are jumping the queue.
Absolutely shocking. Let's have a couple of clips, shall we? Pat McFadden was doing the rounds. And I don't know about you, but I find Pat McFadden to be an incredibly sinister-looking individual. He looks like the sort of guy that would be talking to you on the one hand, but behind him there's a guy with sort of black gloves on who's ready to just punch the hell out of you if you step out of line. That's what he looks like to me, right? Have a look at this. This is him talking on BBC yesterday with Laura Kunsberg about the trans ruling.
Well, we'll all have to react to the court judgment and the guidance from the EHRC that you said. But yes, that's the logical consequence of the judgment and the guidance that's come out, that people use the facilities of their biological sex. That's what the court said, and that's what the guidance has said.
So that is what the government will ban trans people from using the facilities that they want to choose?
We will react. But look, in reality, when you say ban, am I going to be standing outside toilets? I'm probably not. There isn't going to be toilet police, but that is the logical consequence of the court ruling and the EHRC guidance.
Do you acknowledge, as a senior government minister, that the consequences of this ruling, indeed the ruling itself, have caused quite widespread anxiety among the trans community?
Well, I hope everybody's treated with kindness in this.
Now, of course, he was answering a question from Laura Kunsberg about whether or not government workers, i.e. civil servants and others, would be forced to use a toilet of their biological birth. I mean, I can't believe we've been having this conversation.
I know.
His answer was basically yes. So they're going to say in government that you, despite the fact that literally a month ago they were all saying, oh yeah, trans woman is a woman, she can use the woman's bathroom. Lisa Nandy was saying, of course they can use the women's toilets because they are women. They're now going to say, no, sorry, no entry to you. You're not a woman, so you'll have to go in the bloke's toilet.
And there's been some suggestion, actually, that for biological females, it could be breaking the law if we are forced to have trans women in our bathrooms.
Well, it will be. I mean, let's talk about the
places like schools and workplaces where you are meant to now have you're still meant to have single-sex spaces, or at least single-sex cubicles within. I mean, I can't believe we're talking about this. This is the state of this government.
Because
we've got ourselves tied in knots. If you're a man, you use the men's bathroom.
Yeah. It's partly that, but it's also partly because of the trans nutters, right? Well, who all they want to do is talk about toilets. They're obsessed with them.
But a government with, or a prime minister with any backbone would have just put his foot down months ago and just said, look, let's just be clear about one thing.
Do you think Starmer sits down to pee? I think he does. It's one of those things.
I try not to think about it.
He's just one of those blokes, isn't he? You look at him and you go, yeah, that's what you do because your wife told you.
Of course.
I'm sorry to bring that up at this time of the morning, but it just occurred to me. I just think the whole thing has been hijacked and been most ridiculously kind of sidelined.
Yeah.
Where you've got ministers of state having to answer questions
about transgender
about
civil
who's
servants.
going to what toilet.
And I won't be the toilet police, he says, trying to be funny. Well, it is not actually funny, and we shouldn't be wasting government time on this when the country's going to the dogs. You know, the really sad thing is there are lots of departments who haven't actually said they will follow the Supreme Court ruling. You know, there are other
Well, we've already seen the Marathon breaking the law yesterday because they allowed trans women to run in the women's race.
Yes.
Now, as far as I'm concerned, that is a breach of the law. So they should be going round to, what's-his-face, Brasher's house and arresting him.
Of course.
Because he's been very, very vocal on this subject and he says, I'm not going to do it. Well, I'm sorry, it's not about whether you want to do it or not. The law says that you can't do that and you shouldn't be doing it. And if you do it, you should be, in fact, arrested.
But this is where we've got to. If we'd only been clearer right from the beginning, you know, it just is ridiculous that we're in this world where people are saying, because I think I'm this, or because I feel like this, or because I want to dress like this, we all have to pretend that you're the opposite gender, which we know that you're not.
Which is all BS, isn't it?
And there are still staff who are being forced to change in changing rooms, women who are being forced to change out their uniform into their nurse's uniform or whatever it is, into their retail, into their overalls, whatever, in front of men who are fully intact biological males.
Yes, exactly right. I'm sure Ed Davies got the answer, though. Should we have a look at what he had to say?
Yes, I do.
So one example is for trans man. Now, a trans man is a biological woman, and under the court ruling, as I understand it, they can't use a man's toilet, but should use a women's toilet. And I'm not sure if the guidance is dealing with that, because first of all, would the trans man want to use that woman's toilet? And secondly, if they go into that woman's toilet, that could cause some anxiety, obviously. And even worse than that, because safety should be at the core of how we test these different guidelines. Would that mean that a man could go into a woman's toilet and say, oh, I'm a trans man? That would cause even more worries about for lots of people. So it is a bit confusing, Laura. I'll be very frank with you.
Imagine going into the toilet and declaring yourself to be a Liberal Democrat. I mean, what's the problem? Go to the toilet. Just, you know...
Go before you leave.
Yeah, or go at home.
Go at home.
Yeah. If it
is that much of a problem, go at home.
Or go in the disabled toilet if you don't. I mean, I know disabled people always say to me, you shouldn't keep saying that because we have the right to go to our own toilet.
Not all disabilities are visible.
Exactly. Or as Julie Hartley-Brewer says, mine are. But the point is that, you know, the bottom line is that they're tying themselves up in knots, trying to be nice to everybody.
I know.
The world isn't like that, right? If you're a trans man, therefore a woman who wants to look like a man, you can still go and use the women's toilet because that's your biological imperative, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know of any women that are going to look at a woman who thinks she's a bloke and think, oh, there's a bloke having a pee here.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's so ridiculous.
Also, can I point out that most women, trans or not, trans men or not, would not want to use the men's lavatories. So I think the men are safe.
Yeah.
I think it's the other way around.
Yes.
You don't
it's the men who want to use the women,
go swimming,
yeah.
If I was in the shower and there were all these naked women around, a man walking in, a biological male, naked in the showers, that is not acceptable.
No.
That is not safe.
Right.
You have little girls in there.
Yeah.
You are in the women's showers and changing rooms.
Yeah.
Men cannot be in those safe, and I hate this, safe spaces, because I don't think women need safe spaces, but we do need spaces that are women, just as men need spaces that are men, like changing rooms and showers.
Right. The thing that I love about these lefties is that they never ask the Muslim community what they'd like to do they? Because I wonder what they'd say. Do you think they would say, oh, yes, that's fine, you know, don't worry about it, let's have plenty of men walking through the women's areas? No, they wouldn't let the women even into a swimming pool without wearing a bikini.
There's a lady at my pool who swims in a full body burqa, and I find that quite disgusting in the pools. But
how do you know she's washed it before she gets in?
It's not. It's deeply unsanitary.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's right. But we have to bend the knee to everybody,
apparently
don't we?
So. It sounds ridiculous. You wouldn't be surprised to hear, of course, that there was, of course, a protest at the marathon yesterday from these wallies called Youth Demand.
Thought they were going to stop, Mike. They were going to stop.
No, that was going to be
the end.
That was just a
That was just up oil.
This is the new lot, who are even more ridiculous than the last lot. But have a look, because they get dealt with very quickly. This is Tower Bridge, I think, as the first lot of elite runners. Oh, they're spraying. What are they throwing around? And then they get forced to the ground by one person, both of them, which I think is really funny. They're so useless at actually protesting that one person can put them down on the ground.
And it's not even a policeman that puts them down.
Did you start to say one of them is called Willow?
One of them is called Willow.
Willow?
Hello,
Willow.
I think she's from Bristol. Willow from Bristol. Of course she is.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that it's just literally it's a steward. It's not even a sort of riot policeman that takes two of them down. Yeah. It's a little steward in a purple T-shirt.
And then all the police arrive, like mob-handed afterwards, about 15 of them. It's already a bit too late, guys.
When someone is running a marathon and they are dying to get through their time, to get their personal best, whatever
these are the elite runners as well.
These are the elite runners.
Yeah.
You do not jump in front of them.
Watch how many cops. Look how many coppers take care now of sort of keeping them on the ground. They've already been put on the ground by one person, but now we need 6 police officers to arrest them.
One's reaching.
No, here comes some more.
He's reaching for his, I don't know, his handcuffs or something. Another one. So, I think the police were too busy dancing to rainbows.
Probably.
Yeah, doing a rainbow. Yeah, something or other.
Too busy cheering for everybody.
And they're pretty pathetic, the protesters. Look at the way they get ready, and then they sort of go, let's jump into the road.
Yeah, they are. Also, why are the police on the other side of the barriers? Why are they not on the road side of the barriers?
They should be in the road, shouldn't they?
I mean, who's in charge of these bozos? Why are they on the wrong side of the barriers with everybody else? Surely they should be on the road side.
And then the motorbike side.
I mean, call me old-fashioned. If I was asked to police Tower Bridge, you'd have the police, on the road, not behind the fence. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just an idiot. 6:24. Emma Wolf is here. We've got plenty more to do. This, of course, is Morning Glory.
Badenoch has branded Sir Keir Starmer a coward who has no moral core. The Conservative leader has accused the Prime Minister of lacking the courage to admit his mistakes as she attacks his response to the Supreme Court ruling. Now, she has actually made, or she's written an article in the Telegraph, actually, urging people to vote Conservative in the elections that are happening on Thursday. And then Labour has responded to this, saying her deeply personal attack on the Prime Minister is a sign she was flailing and desperately trying to make herself relevant.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side.
Welcome back to the Morning Glory, 6:25. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until the time comes when it's 10 o'clock when Julie Hartley-Brewer will be here. Donald Trump's been talking overnight as well. Let's have a look at this. This is quite a remarkable little number from Donald Trump, who, of course, was in Rome. If you remember, by the way, Emma Wolf is here with me, all the lefties were going, oh, yeah, Donald Trump's going to be in the third row. He's not going to like that.
Front centre.
Turned out he was in the front row.
Yeah.
Keir Starmer, of course, was in the fifth row.
Way
but
back.
They didn't say anything about how humiliating that would be for him. Isn't it funny how the media in this country works, where they try and sell you a story which isn't true, and then when it turns out not to be true, they don't apologise for it. They just pretend it didn't happen. It just
goes quiet.
They just pretend they never said it.
And then they focus on the fact that Trump wore a blue suit instead.
Yeah.
Because then that would be
easier.
easier
Oh, yeah, because
to
he
slap
should have
him for
worn
that.
black. I mean, do me a favour. But here he is talking about... Because one of the things that happened, of course, was that famous picture of him, which also the Trump haters hated, where he was sitting in a room, in a huge room in the Basilica, a few feet from Pope, what's his face? Pope Francis. Right? And talking very, very candidly and very personally to Zelensky. And, I mean, interestingly enough, it was all set up. There goes Starmer. That's him talking to Zelensky there. The background of it was apparently that Macron sort of set it up, and there were 3 chairs originally. One of them was taken away, and Macron was told, sorry, mate, you can go and stand over there. And then Starmer sort of suddenly appears at the end, trying to sort of muscle in on it, because nobody cares what he thinks, right? But have a listen.
He did get his photo opportunity, didn't he? He got his little photo thought of.
But let's have a listen to what Trump had to say about Ukraine war.
You know, they're losing a lot of people. We have 3,000-4,000 people dying every single week. That's a lot of people to lose. You can imagine parents waving from Ukraine and from Russia, waving to their son as he leaves, and, you know, a week later he's dead on a battlefield, all carved up and chopped up. I've seen it. I see the satellite pictures. They're horrible. They're horrible. I would say it can't get any worse. Body parts laying all over. I don't even like looking at them. Body parts laying all over the fields. What are they doing? It would have never started if I were president.
I mean, quite a remarkable piece of footage, that, isn't it? Because he just talks the way nobody else talks. You know, it's shocking. It might be something that people don't like. I mean, I do like it. I like the direct approach.
Me too.
But I mean, it's not something you're used to hearing from world leaders, is it?
Absolutely
they're on
not.
They're on the battlefield, chopped up. They're all chopped up.
And then he goes back to it. All these body parts lying around. Imagine being a parent and seeing that.
And he's right.
But do you know what? He's absolutely right.
Yeah.
And it's not scripted, and it is honest. And it's not kind of from the heart emoting in that way.
Yeah.
He's actually talking sense.
And also
and
Zelensky...
I think a lot of people will agree with that.
Well, Zelensky also said, much to the chagrin of those who hate Donald Trump, after the meeting, that it was a very, helpful meeting.
He said it was very productive. He said it was potentially symbolic.
Yeah,
historic.
absolutely. And Trump came out of it actually more anti-Putin than he went into it.
Yeah,
so,
he said, I think I'm being tapping
so again,
along.
as I've often said in this studio, on this show, wait and see. You know, don't completely attack Donald Trump every single time he does anything. Wait and see how it all ends up.
Well, let's see, because at least he's got us to this stage. It looks like a lot of the concessions they're going to have to make are not very palatable, blah, 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 blah. And actually Putin's not being that helpful. But the fact is, 3+ years in, what are we, 3 years and 3 months into this war, it's taken Trump to get these guys even talking about a ceasefire. That wasn't happening with Biden.
Any of that. No.
Did Biden even know there was a war going on?
Probably not. No, probably not. Although he was, at least, he was in Rome as well. He was actually at the Pope's funeral. I'm not sure he even...
I'm not sure he even...
I can't say, but certainly, you know, Trump is making a difference. He's making peace happen, and whether you like it or not, whether you don't like the fact that Crimea is going to be given away, have a listen to what he has to say about that.
We had a little dispute because I disagreed with something he said, and the cameras were rolling, and that was okay with me. But we had a dispute. But look, he's in a tough situation, a very tough situation. He's been fighting a much bigger force, much bigger, and that force has not been very distinguished. You know, it's been a lot tougher than they thought, but. It helped them when we gave them $350 billion worth of weapons or cash.
Is Zelensky ready to give up Crimea, do you think, Mr. President?
Oh, I think so, yeah. Look, Crimea was 12 years ago. That was President Obama. They gave it up without a shot being fired. So don't talk to me about Crimea. Talk to Obama and Biden about Crimea.
I was just wondering what Zelensky thought.
And remember, this is Biden's war. This isn't Trump's war. I came in to try and solve a problem. And the problem is so many people are being killed.
And again, absolutely right. 2014, you know, the Russians invaded Crimea. Obama did nothing. David Cameron did nothing.
Exactly.
And all these people in America and Britain are now going, oh, my God, you know, you're expecting
he's best buddies with Putin.
No, but you're expecting the Ukrainians to give up Crimea. Well, they've already given it up.
They have.
They haven't occupied it really properly since 2014.
Exactly, and I love the fact that he really does talk sense on this, and the fact that he says this is not Trump's war, this is Biden's war, and, you know, talk to Obama about Crimea, not to me.
Exactly.
He's the only man, they make him out to be such a kind of aggressive, violent, dangerous, it's so dangerous to have Trump in office.
The world's a much more dangerous
place.
place.
Well, who's talking peace now?
Right.
We are much, much closer, and I know Putin is totally unreliable, totally untrustworthy.
Right.
We already saw that with the so-called Easter ceasefire that didn't happen. But at least Putin is talking, is considering.
Maybe you could explain
peace
this to me.
And truth.
How is it a more dangerous place when October the 7th happened under Biden, when Hamas decided they could invade Israel and kill, you know, thousands of people? The Russian invasion of Ukraine happened under Biden.
Watch.
You know, and now Donald Trump is in charge and he's trying to fix it. How is the world a more dangerous place?
And he's actually bringing people to the table
How is
to
it a more
negotiate.
dangerous place?
I know.
I mean, this bloody rhetoric really annoys me.
Really makes me angry.
Particularly from these bozos in the media, you know, who I've lost a lot of patience with.
Of course they have, and I think, but especially with sort of rampant feminists in America going, oh, Trump is a dangerous president for women. Trump is a dangerous president for, well, yeah, I mean, look at how he's got immigration down. Look at how they've got their
I was
borders.
reading a piece actually at the weekend in the Sunday Times about El Paso in Texas,
Yeah.
which is a border town which up until recently was literally full of migrants sleeping on the streets, sleeping in hostels, you know, trying to, you know, sell either prostitutions or drugs or whatever it was. And it now turns out that there's nobody there anymore. And people go to El Paso now and go, where are all the migrants gone? They're not there. They've all been kicked out and they don't come in anymore because they know that they can't stay. And that's how you deal with immigration.
J.D. Vance has been talking about the statistics in terms of the numbers who were trying to get in or the numbers they've deported already is absolutely astonishing. And you may not agree with it, but, well, I do.
Well, I don't know why you wouldn't agree with it. Why wouldn't you?
But, you know, sending people out of the country. But the fact is, when you decide something and you put it into action and you pledge something and you do it, it works.
Yeah. There's no issue with getting rid of people who have come into the country illegally, as far as I'm concerned. You come into the country illegally, you're an illegal alien, you're a criminal, you get deported. Simple. If we did it, suddenly we would be a lot happier. Instead, what we're doing is not only giving them hotel space now, we're giving them houses.
Of course.
Of course they're going to keep coming.
And we are prioritising them over British people.
Yeah, unbelievable. Alan in Merseyside says, how can Labour promise Circa a 5-year guarantee contract to landlords when they probably won't be in power after 4 years? And John from Carmarthen says, great idea, Keir. Pay landlords to put up migrants. Genius. Millions of taxpayer pounds laid out. Millions of tax revenue from private rentals lost. Priceless. I know, it is absolutely incredible, isn't it? Who thought that anybody giving Keir Starmer its keys to Downing Street was a good idea? We told you it wasn't going to be a good idea. It's actually now turned out to be even worse than we could have ever possibly imagined.
And they're paying taxpayers, we are paying way over the market sort of rate, the local going rate, to get get Serco to help, because they're desperate to put the migrants somewhere, because all their plans have failed, because they had no plan. Oh, I know, let's just allow thousands of people in.
Sorry, let me stop you there. I thought they had plans. I thought they said they had a plan. I thought they said that everything was costed and that they wouldn't do anything that wasn't costed.
What was the plan? Smashing the boats or stopping the gangs?
Smashing, smuggling guns.
Smashing the gangs, yeah. Smuggling the bananas or something.
Idiots. Absolute idiots. It's 6:34. Emma Wolf is here. We've got much more to do, including what's going on in the NHS. Apparently, there's a nurse who keeps bearing herself to her fans on OnlyFans. Also, we're going to be talking about junk food, which apparently makes up 53% of your average British diet, which is pretty appalling if you think about it. 6:35.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:36. I'm Mike Graham, with you, of course, all the way through until 10 o'clock. Andy in Sheffield says, Mike, is it me? I cannot understand what they find complicated. A biological male goes to male toilets. A biological female goes to female toilets. These politicians are charged with running the country. Heaven help us. I love Talk. Listen to it on DAB all day, every day, and YouTube over the weekend. Andy, you're a top man. Thank you very much indeed. Just while we're on the subject, let's have a look at what Carla Denya's got to say. She's, of course, the co-leader of the Green Party. This woman is even more mad than Ed Davey. She, of course... Oh, it's a tweet. Sorry, I thought it was a clip. She's showing solidarity with trans, but she was on Laura Kuenssberg yesterday.
The Green Party have been
basically
crazy about this. Sean Berry and Carla Denya.
Yeah. Basically saying that they're not going to adhere to the law. They think that the law should be rewritten.
Solidarity.
So they're going to go to... I don't know who they're going to go to get them to rewrite the law. You can't just rewrite the law. The Supreme Court have made a judgment that says a trans woman is not a woman.
No, but it's full of holes. It's full of holes. The law's full of holes, and it's clearly been written without...
It may well be full of holes. That's another story. But, you know, that's just ridiculous. Just completely bonkers mad. Let's talk about the front page of the I newspaper. This is one of my favourite stories of the day, right? It says, this is the headline, "Don't charge your phone in a Chinese electric car." This is a warning from not, you know, just anybody. This is from UK defence firms warning their own staff, if you've got a Chinese electric car, don't charge your phone in it. Why not?
Why are we still allowing this really, really unsafe Chinese technology in our cars, in our phones? Yeah. And especially for, like, security services and MI5.
Well, they've now said, MI5 and MI6 have said, if you've got a Chinese electric car, don't park it near the office.
Because
park it a mile away.
Because they can listen to what's going on in the offices. It is absolutely mad.
What if I'm sitting next to one of them at the traffic lights? Are they sucking all the information out of my phone? What are they doing? What's happening?
They should say, don't talk. Don't even talk.
No.
You're in your phone. Don't even talk in your car.
I'm going to start a new campaign. Anybody who buys one of these BYD cars, right, which is the world's worst idea for a car, you know, build your dream, which is obviously a really bad translation of Chinese.
Names.
You know, it's like ordering, you know, chopsticks and you know, getting spoons. And you go, what number is that? 47, you say. OK, I thought that was egg foo young, but it turns out it's chicken chow mein. The point is this. If you're sitting there in a Chinese car, you are technically a traitor to your own country. Stop buying Chinese cars because they're trying to take over, they're trying to undermine the British economy and the European economy and every other economy in the Western world. Stop buying Chinese cars. Simple.
And phones.
And phones.
I think they are basically embedding, it sounds like they're embedding this technology in all the stuff that they're sending over here.
Of course they are.
So it's be careful, check your car today. It's BYD, Aura, Geely and MGs.
Yeah.
So those are the unsafe cars, so get rid of them.
Yeah, just don't buy them. You see a lot of people driving around in them because there are all these... And you see Dale Vince at the weekend. Dale Vince at the weekend. No, but he was telling people to stop buying Teslas because apparently in all the countries in Europe, Tesla sales are down, but in Britain they're up, right? So I'm thinking, oh, great, so you want people to buy Chinese electric cars?
Of course he does.
I mean, a green zealot telling people not to buy an electric car.
Oh,
How
he'll be all right.
is that?
He'll buy himself an electric car, you know, top of the range.
He's got an electric motorbike.
Oh, I see,
which costs about 20 grand.
Yeah.
Right? Now, let's go to the big story of the day. This is page 23 of The Sun. NHS probe explicit snaps. Carry on nursing, it says. OnlyFans pics. An NHS nurse is being investigated for taking explicit snaps for an adult website while she's at work in a hospital in London.
She's in an East London hospital. And she's got photographs, she's wearing her uniform, she's got her ID badge.
She's not always wearing a uniform.
She's not always. It's clearly visible.
Yeah.
She, you know, she says, oh, I think I'm going to get caught. Oh, she's sort of laughing about this. She boasts about having sex with a paramedic after a patient's death. She talks about how sex and death go really well together.
Weird how that makes you horny.
I mean, that's really
then.
Shocking and inappropriate.
Right.
I know you're laughing, but,
no,
you know,
no, but I mean, I'm laughing because it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is, of course.
I've come here for my occupational therapy. Well, never mind that. You know, I've just been masturbating in the toilet.
Yeah, she does that as well.
I know it's early, but, you know, I can't stop telling the truth.
She's offering to send out used undies in NHS specimen bags.
Right.
To her fans.
Right.
This is crazy. She is obviously, if you worked with that,
those bags, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like PPI. They shouldn't be, you know, wasted. But also, the bosses should be able to, I would say, from the photograph, she's wearing a mask.
Yeah.
But you would be able to identify if that was a member of your team.
Well, they've got a picture of the ID badge. They've
got an ID badge.
They've blurred it.
But they've also got a picture of the woman from her OnlyFans account.
And they've got her name as well. We don't have to mention that. But she's seen showing off her bra and knickers under a uniform. Her NHS hospital ID lanyard can also be seen in the pictures. I mean,
she's at work.
So if
is there any wonder why we've got long waiting lists?
If you're wondering why the waiting list is still going up, I mean, we'll be talking later about this because once again, yesterday, Pat McFadden told more lies on behalf of the government where he said, the waiting lists have been coming down for the last 6 months. They're not coming down.
They're not.
And I have been on a crusade on this one because I know... Because everybody always tells me, and I'll take more of your information again today, everybody always tells me that they're getting moved from one list to another. They've got an appointment made, a cancellation then comes,
and then you're not on the waiting list. You're somewhere else, or you've had a phone call, so you've been technically you've been seen, so you're waiting for something else.
Yeah.
So you're then not classed. It's this, you know, it's not semantics, but it's this is
one of the many tweets I got over the weekend, and this is from Ginger, who says, "I've had my doctor's appointment at a local surgery rescheduled twice now, and when it's rebooked, it shows as a new appointment. Are the doctors now copying the hospitals? It'd be great if you could ask your audience to see if the same is happening nationwide." So that's GP surgeries where they're cancelling an appointment you get and giving you another one, which means you haven't been waiting as long.
And we discussed this last week, Mike. They are also GP surgeries, so your primary care, where you are meant to go first, so you don't put stress on on A&E.
Yeah.
Your GP surgeries are being paid, they're being incentivised not to refer you. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Not to refer you for hospital appointments, so that you're not on those waiting lists. So that's unsafe for patients.
And again,
because diagnoses are not happening when they should be happening.
No, exactly right. And McFadden, again, even he sort of conceded, well, you know, we're moving a lot of people onto these diagnostic tests.
Yeah.
And diagnostic tests are not necessarily good for people because all it does is it puts you on a different waiting list.
Yes.
You get a diagnostic test which then says, oh, you should be referred to a hospital, which you already were before you had the diagnostic test.
But we all know, we've been told for decades now that for something like cancer, early detection is key. Early detection and early treatment. It is not funny when people are waiting months and months and months to be seen. I don't care what the numbers are.
No.
The point is, if you have cancer or if you have something that needs to be checked, you need to be seen as soon as possible.
Yeah, exactly right. And what do you make of this story on the front page of the Telegraph? Autism tests to be given to all children who think they are transgender. Now, again, here's an NHS which is already overwhelmed. It's already not fit for purpose. It's already incapable of dealing with all the people that it's supposed to see. And now they're saying we're going to test every child who believes they are transgender for autism. How are they going to do that?
This is absolutely crazy, Mike. And I'm in the thick of the kind of primary school, secondary school system at the moment with a young child.
Yeah.
Every second child now has has been diagnosed with special educational needs, autism, ADHD. We just need to get real about children. We need to start having kind of normal standards of behaviour again and bringing children up normally so that we're not diagnosing every other child with either gender dysphoria, autism, ADHD, behaviour management issues. No, children need to be children and adults need to be adults. We are in such a mess. I think the parents need to be checked for autism. I think parents of transgender children need to be checked. Well, they need to have their heads checked.
Well, quite. Let's have a look at why we are in the sort of state that we are in. Rory Stewart, you know, the bloke who thinks he's the world's cleverest man, once described by J.D. Vance as a guy who thinks he's got an IQ of 120, but he actually has only got an IQ of 110. Here's his view of trans people.
In the Rory Stewart world, I would say trans women should not be able to compete in women's sports. Seems to me unfair. I would probably be in favour of gender-neutral bathrooms in many contexts. I would also be in favour of looking at a case-by-case basis on a trans woman wanting to go into the female estate in a prison.
A trans woman in the female estate. What's he talking about?
He is
painful.
Why is he?
What's so wrong with him? You know, is he a transhuman? He's not actually a human at all. He's like a man who's come from outer space to pretend to be a human, a transhuman.
He's completely misunderstood. There are people who say they're gender neutral.
Yeah, he thinks men who have committed sexual offences against women, who pretend to be women for the purposes of a trial, should then be sent to a women's prison where they can assault more women.
He thinks men who maybe just put on a dress should be able to go into women's spaces, into women's private intimate spaces, and into their showers, and into their changing room. I'm assuming he doesn't have daughters. The man is completely mad.
Yeah, I know.
And history will prove these guys...
He's a very weird bloke, isn't he?
History will prove these guys
He's a very weird bloke.
Wrong.
They will. And there he is doing this quite successful podcast with the war criminal Alistair Campbell.
Yes.
This one from Chrissy in Spain. She says, Mike, I've just recovered from a laughing fit after watching Grumpy Old Men on Saturday. The story, this is quite a funny story, but I'm not going to tell it again, but go and watch Grumpy Old Men. It's on YouTube. The story about how you nearly died on the flume is the funniest thing I've heard in years, and you told it brilliantly.
Tell me, because I've been on the flumes this weekend.
You know, in Centre Parks. Have you ever been to Centre Parks?
Yes, I have.
They've got that outdoor sort of flume thing. I nearly got crushed to death by a very large woman who was coming down at the same time as I was and sort of somehow pressed me up against the side of it. And I literally thought I was going to die. I mean, you've got to watch Grumpy Old Men. I'm not going to go through the whole thing again, but it's very, hilarious.
They are quite dangerous, those things.
But I was literally, like, going down as one with this woman who was enveloping me with her flesh. It was awful. Anyway, that's another story. 6:47. You can also watch Plank of the Week as well if you've missed it. Emma Wolf is here. We've got lots more to do. Coming up, what should we talk about? We should talk about junk food and why 53% of it makes up our diet here in the UK. Extraordinary. This is Talk.
Your viewers have heard those words for themselves. They speak for themselves. They are beyond despicable. I understand that the counter-terrorist police, who have apparently investigated this ban before, are now investigating these comments. If these people are then arrested and charged and tried and convicted, then I hope we don't so much throw the book at them as the entire British Library.
UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 10 minutes to 7. This one from Ronald says, my son got 2 letters confirming a hospital appointment, one of them a week before, and then went for his appointment only to be told your appointment was cancelled. He was not even informed about the cancellation until he went to the hospital. This was a result from a biopsy to check for cancer. He waited 6 weeks for this and was told, go and see your GP for the results. You see, this is the thing. You know, when you get... This is what annoys me so much about this government, is they wheel out people like Pat McFadden, and they all do it. Starmer does it. You know, Rachel Reeves does it. Oh, we're fixing the NHS. We're solving the waiting list problems. It's lies.
It's absolute
complete
lies.
Barefaced lies.
It is lies, and it's also, you know, lots of us respected Wes Streeting at the beginning and talking sense on the NHS, and, you know, we're not going to treat the NHS like a holy, sacred cow and all of that stuff. But also, I think it sort of leaves out the human aspect of all this. I mean, that your caller there's son, who is waiting 6 weeks for the result. Do they realise when you've had a biopsy on something that might be cancer, you are terribly anxious? Yeah. And you're waiting, and you're just left waiting. Yeah,
and you don't know, and you can't be helped. It's absolutely appalling. Morning, Mike. On the subject of toilets, says George in Birmingham, I once stopped what looked like a man from behind, jeans, jacket, short back and sides, from using the ladies. I tapped her on the shoulder saying, that's the ladies, and she replied, I am one. And she was. It's a minefield. Love the show. Well, it is. This is the problem. I mean, nobody's going to police it, but somehow... It has to work somehow.
I think that's the mistake of getting caught up in this toilets thing, because no one minds what you look like if you look quite male or if you look quite female or if you dressed in a funny way. Right. But I just think just go on your genital. If your genitals are male, go in the men's. Yeah. If your genitals, because it's the toilet.
It's like it's sort of a self-fulfilling. You know, do what is the right thing to do, right? And
you don't want to know what's in your...
All the trans women are going, but if I go into a man's toilet dressed as a woman, I'll get beaten up. Well, I don't know anybody that's going to beat up a woman who goes into a toilet who's obviously a bloke dressed as a woman. Just leave them alone, wouldn't you?
What are they hanging around lavatories for anyway?
I know.
Just go.
They seem obsessed with them. Right, I've got bad news for you. We've got a clip from Meghan, who we haven't seen for a while. Harry and Meghan. Harry, this is Lilibet, apparently, their daughter, being unveiled.
Haven't seen her for a while. Are you kidding me? 2 days ago, she was all over the place with her, Times Summit in New York, pushing Harry out the way, making it all about her, and ridiculous...
But we haven't seen her on this show. We haven't seen her on this show for a while. She hasn't been on Plank of the Week for a couple of weeks, so to me, that seems like a long time. Anyway, check this out.
What do we think, Lily?
I think it's beautiful.
Sorry. I'm not making fun of the child, but, of course she talks like that.
That is beautiful. Embarrassing.
I know.
There's another clip where apparently Archie says, Mama works too hard, which is just, you really think a 5-year-old is going to say that unless he's been prompted.
Come off it.
Isn't it interesting how she's becoming more and more desperate? All of this stuff about privacy, I want my privacy, la 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 la. Yeah. Now we're starting to get photos of her children. We're getting video footage of her children.
Yeah. And pretty soon there'll be an interview with the kids, no doubt, about how great my parents are. They're such great parents. They love them so much.
Such an inspiration to me, and that Archiewell Foundation. And by the way, you can buy the jam here.
Yeah, exactly right. Front page of the Mail we haven't mentioned yet. So much for a bonfire of the quangos. This is once again the usual BS, right? When governments say we're going to get rid of quangos, what usually happens is actually more of them. Hundreds of fat cat public officials were paid more than the Prime Minister last year, they say, sparking calls for Labour to speed up the promised bonfire of the quangos. More than 350 quango bosses received a salary higher than 172 grand that he gets.
Yeah, so
how does he get 172 grand, by the way?
Isn't that hilarious?
I'd give him 72.
Well, and also
he'll be go whistle for the rest, matey.
Absolutely raking it in. He'll have a a KC's kind of pension and all of that.
Yeah.
This is 1,500 of these fat cats are taking home over £100,000.
Right.
The rest of us have to just worry about our bills and things.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is this kind of bloated state, and another broken promise. Labour said they were going to tackle this. They were going to deal with
And of course they haven't.
And
then they've got, on pages 6 and 7, they've got a sort of selection, if you like, of the gravy train. Since last year, unelected Peter Hendy, 72, has been rail minister in Sir Keir's government, a position he's able to fill thanks to a life peerage. He doesn't report to MPs in the House of Commons, but he's at least a bit more accountable than he was in his previous job as chairman of Network Rail, There he had the distinction of being the highest paid non-executive member of a Quango, receiving £316,000 a year. Network Rail, who literally couldn't run a railway.
Literally cannot run the trains.
No.
And are failing. You know, you look at Thames Water, you look at these guys, and also they're getting bonuses, massive bonuses, 5-figure bonuses, all the perks, all the pensions, massive payouts.
And some of them have got more than one role.
Of course they have.
Right.
Everything on expenses.
Yeah.
And everything basically, you know, it's reward for failure, isn't it?
Yeah, here's one from, what's his name? Emir Felsal, a chartered accountant who in 22-23 managed to hold down 6 different positions, right, including British Transport Police Authority member, 17.5 grand, including executive director of the Driver and Vehicle Standards Authority, another 17.5 grand, and commissioner for judicial appointments, 13,000. I mean, you know, why don't they just invent this stuff? It's great,
and you know what? I think there was someone tweeting yesterday that they were 13,000 in the queue for their driving test.
Yeah.
So these guys at DVLA are not exactly doing a great job,
Good luck getting a driving test. Well,
good luck getting a driving test.
Because driving tests are being taken up by migrants who are being given priority to take a driving test.
The driving test waiting list is literally in the thousands in terms of getting a date.
Yeah. I know, unbelievable. Front page of the Times, deadly toll from ultra-processed food. Thousands of middle-aged people in Britain die prematurely each year, apparently, according to a study, because they eat too much ultra-processed food, including junk food, basically. Premature deaths here is deaths from people aged 30 to 69, attributed to what they call UPF, ultra-processed food. And we are apparently eating 53% of our diet on this stuff.
Yeah, and this is.
I mean, I don't eat any of this stuff, so I find it.
No, but this is really serious, and I think what's most alarming is that other things like cut down on your fat, cut down on your salt, cut down on your sugar. You know what you're doing. The thing about UPFs is that people don't know. People don't necessarily. You can't control this stuff that is in processed food.
Yeah.
You know, and there's been a massive rise in bowel cancer and those kind of digestive and colon cancer amongst young people.
Yes.
So young people, but also amongst the middle age as well. And lots of scientists are saying why this sudden rise in things like bowel cancer, and it is down to ultra-processed food. It's down to lifestyle factors.
And it's things like ham,
for the first time,
mass-produced bread, breakfast cereals, ready meals, biscuits, fizzy drinks. What they haven't mentioned, of course, is junk food and some of those things that you get delivered to your house.
Exactly, and that is, at least we know that's junk. But things like breakfast cereal, things like bread, I wouldn't class that as junk food. That's just food that you buy in the supermarket.
No, but
it is processed.
Ultra-processed bread, I think you have to be careful
of. But people don't know. People think they're feeding their kids healthy food. They get them some breakfast cereal that's high fibre. They get them some brown bread. They think that's okay. The stuff shouldn't be in regular food items.
Yes. No, I get that. And I think that's absolutely right. And also, it's probably slightly over-egging it to say that just because of people eating that food, that's why they're dying.
No, of course not.
Because I don't always believe that either. But it's certainly not healthy.
No, and correlation is not causation. And actually, those people who are eating higher levels of processed food will be living less healthy lifestyles overall. They will be lower income, all of that stuff. There are other factors. But the fact is, there's a lot of hidden stuff, hidden chemicals that we don't know about in our foods.
Yes.
Even you, who I know you cook amazing healthy food, I see it on Twitter every day, you're cooking fresh.
Yes.
Lots of people just don't know what's in regular food items.
I made some very nice leaky potato soup last night, which is
favourite.
lovely. I'm going to be looking forward to that. One final one, apparently the latest one for the snowflakes is that Worzel Gummidge is apparently hurts people. Page 19 of the Sun. Basically, apparently, the reason it's got a trigger warning now is because the scarecrow threatens to knock Aunt Sally's wooden head off.
Well, I think that's... I think the scarecrow's just scary because he looks like a wrong un. He looks to me like a sort of really odd tramp that leaps out of the bushes and attacks children. I think Worzel Gummidge is gross.
Yeah.
But the term trigger warning makes me...
You don't need it, do you?
Triggers me. It triggers me.
You don't need it.
I don't want a trigger warning about anything. Stop triggering us with your warnings.
Stop triggering us. Rodney? Because there's trigger, of course, in that show as well. We've got a voice note, but we'll play it later, coming up into the next hour. Emma, thank you very much indeed. We've got loads more to do. That's the first hour of the show out of the way already. It's Monday morning, last Monday in April. It's going to be a fascinating week, of course. Again, we're going to be kicking it to Starmer. We're going to be finding out what exactly is the truth that's going on. And what about Donald Trump? We'll be talking about him as well. This, of course, is Morning Glory. We'll be back after the news.
You said you don't like Polish people and you don't trust them.
That's not what I said.
Yes, that's what you said.
No. You must have misheard me. I like Polish people a lot.
Christ me, I never heard of this from you. I've heard this on the radio.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. You want to have a listen? Have a listen to what I said. Okay. Listen to this.
Yes.
I don't like Poles. I wasn't talking about Polish people.
Yes.
I was talking about polls. You know, when you do a poll to find out what people think. You know, like they say 55% of people vote Remain, 45% vote Leave. That's a poll. I wasn't talking about...
but later on you said you don't trust them, so you don't...
I don't trust them. No, that's true. I don't trust Poles, and I don't like Poles because I don't trust them. But that's not Polish people.
No, that's what I thought. That's what I pick up.
Oh,
so
I'm terribly sorry. Listen, well, I would never say anything like that.
No, so in this case, I never learned English.
No, listen, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. I'm very glad you called in because I wouldn't want you walking around thinking that Mike Graham is a horrible bigot. He doesn't like Polish people.
No, I was thinking, what the hell? What's going on here, actually? I must be back and explain a few things.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to 3 minutes past 7. I'm Mike Graham, and of course this is the home of common sense. It is Monday morning. It is the last last Monday, I should say, in April. Monday the 28th of April. May is looming large. It's going to be a very hot week, apparently, certainly down here in the south of England. I know I always say that with a caveat because many of you in different parts of the country go, it's not very warm here. But it's going to be like 24, 25. They're calling it Blowtorch UK on the front page of the Daily Star. It's going to be lovely. It's going to be, getting your shorts on, getting your legs out in the sun, getting your arms out in the sun. Remember to, I'm not even going to say remember to wear whatever it is, protection, because it's up to you. If you don't want to wear protection, you get burnt. Do what you like. I don't care. It's as simple as that. We are not a nanny state here, but there is, of course, a nanny state, and you'll be getting lots of that. I mean, how soon before? Maybe you could predict for me when we're going to get the first warning there might be a wildfire coming our way, because, of course, very, very tinderbox-like, and the whole place might just go up. You might be walking home one day and suddenly your neighbourhood's going to explode into flames. I don't know. We're going to talk this morning about the NHS because many of you have still got many stories to tell about, the idea that Pat McFadden once again appeared on television at the weekend and told a load of lies about how, the NHS waiting lists have been falling for the last 6 months. No, they haven't. You've been removing people from them. You've been sending people letters to say to them, basically, do you still need the appointment that you've been waiting for 6 months? And if you don't answer because you're either dead or you didn't get the letter, we'll just wipe you off the face of the earth and we won't put you on the waiting list anymore. Loads of other people telling me that they've been getting appointments and then having those appointments cancelled. This is a theme. This is something that's going on. The next time I get a member of the government on, I will be giving them absolutely hell and high water on this because I'm not going to believe their lies. I'm not going to take their lies. I'm not going to let them treat us like complete and utter idiots, which is what they think we are, obviously. Huge week as well, of course, because there's going to be by-elections and, of course, local council elections on Thursday. We'll cover all of that for you over the course of the next few days. And Friday is going to be a big day when we expect to have quite a few upsets going around to talk to you about. Also, we're going to talk migrants this morning. Big story over the weekend. Serco, one of the companies that's got billions and billions of dollar contracts with the government, are actually now saying to landlords, Please give us your houses, please give us your rental properties so that we can rent them out to illegal migrants. We want to get as many of them into them as possible. We want to bypass all of the people who are waiting currently for rental properties, and we want to give you a guarantee that over the next 5 years, not only will you get the rent paid on a regular basis, you will get council tax paid, and you will have all repairs paid for as well, whatever you need. Don't worry, trust in us. It's all taxpayers' money. Nobody gives a damn. Absolutely shocking. Meanwhile, what about the OnlyFans working in the NHS? Stripping off and showing all and sundry what she's got to offer, despite the fact that she's meant to be working for the local health service. Unbelievable stuff. I'm Mike Graham. This is Morning Glory. We're after this. Let's get a voice note from Lee, which is not about the OnlyFans woman, who's apparently still got a stethoscope on while she's taking the clothes off. He's got something to say about the NHS. Here we go, Lee.
Lee from Manchester. Spoke to you beginning of April about the NHS waiting lists. My own situation is I had appointment after appointment cancelled, probably about 4 times. And I said I'd get back in contact with you if they cancelled again. And lo and behold, they've cancelled again. So now I had a referral from early July to late July. So I'm not holding much out for this one because it's the 5th time they've cancelled it. So it won't surprise me if they end up cancelling this one again. Again, I'll let you know. Have a good day.
Lee, thanks for keeping us updated. Absolutely unbelievable. I mean, imagine if you're going through that, and many of you will be as you listen to this show, waiting for a test result, waiting for, having got the test result, an appointment to go and get it sorted, waiting perhaps for a biopsy result to come back, waiting perhaps for an opportunity to have the biopsy done. You know, and I'm really, really getting fed up with the lies that this government tells. You know, look, everybody understands that the NHS is under pressure. Nobody expects people in the NHS to work, you know, in ridiculously long hours and to wear themselves out. Nobody expects that. However, what you do expect is for the system to have some form of ability to actually operate on a regular daily basis so that when you need help, you can get it. And if you do get promised that you're going to be seen in June, that you get seen in June. But everybody knows that if you do get offered a place to go and see somebody in June, more than likely it will get cancelled and you won't be seeing anybody in June at all. And it will be put off till July or possibly August. And this is what's happening all around the country. And so for Pat McFadden to go on to BBC, and we'll have the clip for you coming up a little bit later on, to go on the BBC and claim that waiting lists have been going down for 6 months is a flat-out lie. And he knows it, we know it, and I think they should stop doing it because I think it's disingenuous and it's insulting to the population. 8 minutes past 7. Let's talk to Will Kingston, political commentator, a host of the Fire at Will podcast. Will, very good morning to you, sir.
G'day, Mike. I'm sorry to hear that story from Lee. It's extraordinary how often we're hearing anecdotes like that at the moment.
Exactly right. I mean, whenever I talk about the NHS on this show, people fill me with stories about their own personal experience or experiences that their friends have had. And I find it really particularly irritating that government ministers continually, and very senior government ministers, Pat McFadden is effectively the de facto deputy prime minister. Keir Starmer does it. You know, McFadden does it, Rachel Reeves does it, Angela Rayner does it. They all do it, and they all talk about, you know, we're tackling waiting lists, they're coming down. They're not. They're telling flat-out lies.
Well, there are some things as a government that you can gaslight on, and there are some things you can't. So you can probably gaslight people on foreign policy. They don't really know what's going on in Ukraine, for example. You can gaslight people on really complex issues. But you can't gaslight people on the economy, and you can't gaslight them on health, because it's things that impact their daily lives. They can feel the hip pocket and they can see whether or not they're getting to go to see a doctor. So the gaslighting doesn't work, and that's when the spin will really come back and bite them.
You can't keep saying things on television and on media and expect the public to swallow what you're saying, because, as you say, they're experiencing it on a daily basis. It's like when we did this on inflation. You know, when the inflation figures came out last early part of this month, and it was said, oh, inflation's at 2.6%. It's gone down from 2.7%, and some sort of more stupid, shall we say, news channels said, oh, a bit of good news for Rachel Reeves. You know, no, because 2.6% is absolute BS, because at the end of the day, everybody knows that inflation is running at somewhere like 10 to 15%. Council tax is up. You know, water rates are up 50%. Electricity's up by another, 10%. people are going to supermarkets and finding things that they used to pay 50p for are now £1.50. You know, so don't tell me, you know, don't pee down my back and tell me it's raining, basically, is what people are saying.
Yeah, I think that's very well put. And the problem is that they don't really have the tools to be able to fix this problem, either on the economy or on health, because the best fixes go against their core socialist ideology.
Yeah.
And number one would be actually prioritising more of the private sector. I continue to be amazed how there is just this reticence in the UK to try and strengthen private healthcare as a way to take the load off the public system.
Yeah.
And secondly, population control, because they're still keen on a mass migration policy, as much as they may say otherwise, and that continues to put a burden on the public health system.
Exactly right. Speaking of a burden on the public health system, let's talk about the big story at the weekend, which was that Serco, one of the massive companies that has got huge government contracts in the billions and billions of pounds, not only to ferry prisoners around, but to bring migrants into the country from Dover, put them onto coaches, bring them into parts of Britain, put them into hotels. They're now asking for people to basically provide housing for these migrants, because, you know, the hotels are no longer fit for purpose. They're going to try and get people out of them, but as a result, the rental market is going to be squandering any likelihood of anyone who needs a rental property getting one, because the migrants are going to get the head of the queue as ever, guaranteed 5 years income, guaranteed council tax paid, guaranteed all repairs paid, just unbelievable. And homeowners, meanwhile, are struggling to sell properties near those asylum hotels. The same thing will happen to rental markets as well. You'll get entire high streets and entire streets in entire towns where nobody will want to live.
Yeah, I debated Matthew Stadlin on this story over the weekend, which, as you can imagine, was about as fun as a colonoscopy.
I mean, you know, and the bloke needs to be, you know, put in a padded cell for a while.
Yeah, exactly right. And by the way, a padded cell would be a better outcome for many of these economic migrants than plush hotels.
Yeah.
This is exactly the thing. That would provide a disincentive. The problem we have at the moment is we continue to provide incentives to people to risk their lives at the Channel. Now, something Stadlin said, he said, well, these may be cheaper than hotels. And he may be right, but it's still more expensive than a detention centre, and it's still more expensive than deportation. And this is what happens when you still make these accommodations as opposed to really harsh disincentives. Harshness needs to be part of the policy if you want to get numbers down, and they don't, as a government, understand that fundamental point.
Well, people say it can't be done, right? People say, well, where in the world are they doing it? Well, here's where they're doing it, in the United States of America, because I read a piece at the weekend about El Paso in Texas, which used to be a place right on the border with Mexico, which was flooded with migrants. You know, the streets were literally riddled with homeless migrants sleeping there. You know, every sort of, migrant resting place was taken up. You couldn't get a hotel room. You couldn't get a place in a hostel. There were thousands of people there. They were coming in at the tune of something like 8,000 to 9,000 a day into El Paso. They've now reduced it down to about 8,000 a month, and the whole place is now empty because they've sent all the migrants back. And there's a challenge coming legally, which is coming, I think, from various kind of lefty organisations in America. But Donald Trump has done what he said he would do, which is to halt the migrant crisis on the southwest corner of the United States of America. And so it can be done. We could do the same thing. You just have to be brutal about it.
Yeah, but what you've just pointed out there as well is it's short-term pain, but very quickly, if you remove the incentive, the numbers do plummet. We saw this in Australia as well, which remains the best model for the UK to follow. And the keys to that model were turning back boats and offshore detention and offshore processing. In Australia, they used the Nauru as a way to put migrants, or economic migrants, which is what I'm going to call them. We need to stop calling them refugees. The vast majority of them
I haven't
are not
called them refugees for years. I don't know where you've been, mate. I mean, we don't call them refugees. We call them illegal migrants.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. Well, they're illegal economic migrants in addition to that, and we need to start changing the terminology in the broader discourse, not just on the home of common sense.
Yeah.
And so we need to adopt those policies of offshore detention and boat turnbacks, or else you're going to just keep having these numbers rising throughout the summer.
No, of course. And we've now got a situation, laughably, where even those who have come here legally, who have overstayed their visas, whether they be students or whether they be people who have come to work, they've overstayed their visas, and they then decide they want to claim asylum, they get put in these hotels as well. So it's like a double whammy. You know, we get the bill for absolutely everything that they do. They are not in any way contributing to this country economically. They are not getting jobs in which they are paying enough tax to subsidise some of their family members who come in as well. And I mean, the last Labour idea that we heard was that they were going to start bringing even more people in, swapping them out for those people who had come here illegally on small boats. They're going to drop them off in France and bring back a load more people who have apparently got relatives here. The whole thing is a disgrace.
Yeah, there seems to be this attitude that immigration policy is like a school carnival where everyone around the world deserves a fair go, as opposed to it being what it should be, which is being the member of a very exclusive club. And that means you don't let many people in, and the people you do let in are going to be generally wealthy, high taxpayers who are going to contribute to the economy and adopt the values. And there is this fundamental mindset on the left, but to be honest, the same mindset in the Conservatives when they were in government that said, you know, well, just give everyone a ribbon and everyone can come into the carnival. It's just not how it should work. But unfortunately, that is the mindset in the Labor Party today.
It really is. More bad news on the economic front as well. Front page of the Times. Reeves faces pay demand for teachers and nurses. Millions of public sector workers, including teachers and nurses, should be given pay rises of as much as 4%. Ministers have been told in a move that will put further pressure on Rachel Reeves. She went over to Washington, D.C. Last week and was told basically that the IMF had decided to downgrade Britain's economic prospects for growth, which was now down to somewhere like 1.1%. You know, she is having the worst time of any Chancellor, I think, in living memory, because at least for Kwasi Kwarteng, it was relatively short and he was out of a job quickly. She's going to be in this job, I think, for not much longer. But, I mean, is there anything that you didn't expect about this story? Because I've been saying this for ages. You know that people in the unions are going to go after her for more money because they'll get it.
Yeah, that's right. This story is a microcosm of so many of the economic challenges that face the United Kingdom. Number one is this obsession with outsourcing government decision-making to quangos.
Yeah.
And I want to hit this point that these bodies that decide pay rates are somehow independent. They aren't independent. They would all have very strong links to their respective industries that they supposedly represent.
Yeah.
They'd be staffed by people who used to work in those industries. They would be sympathetic to those industries. So they'd, of course, be pushing to have higher rates of pay increases than what you would have if it was the government doing it, who need to basically take a more holistic view of expenditure into account. But the thing is, because the government now just outsources it because they can say it's easier, and you can say we don't have to take responsibility for these pay rises, which will lead to pay tax increases because, well, the independent body told us to do it. And that's why you always see this really modest forecast. I think they were forecasting 2%, something similar for pay rises, and it goes up to 4%. And they go, oh, well, the independent body told us to do it. We need to raise taxes now. That is this absolute scandal, and it's happening all the time. And it is as a result of this obsession with outsourcing responsibility to politically compromise quangos.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, we've got another summer of discontent coming. There's going to be strikes. There's going to be people wanting more money. The government will eventually give it to them. One thing we should just mention before I let you go, Will, the marathon was run yesterday. I don't know if you were in it. I wasn't.
Absolutely
but I did
not.
get held up by it because they didn't open the roads quickly enough at the end. But front page of the Times today has got a picture of these two bozos from Youth Demand, one of whom apparently was called Willow. They tried to get in the way of the elite runners and were luckily, happily, sort of forced to the ground by one person before the police finally got there, who were on the wrong side of the fence, by the way. I don't know what they were doing on the wrong side of the fence. But looking at the picture, they look very young. I thought they were in this group called Youth Demand. I mean, I would expect them to be about 16 or 17. These people look about 40. Not exactly youthful.
Yeah, it's like we see with the Just Stop Oil guys, but they're often these 60 to 70-year-old geriatrics who are trying to replay their 60s protesting days. And the other thing is they always have posh names.
The answer,
They're always
my
from posh
friend,
families.
is blowing in the wind.
Yeah, exactly right. I think the marshal did a great job. I would have gone in a bit lower with my body height, and I would have gone a bit harder in the ribs, but otherwise the effort was there.
Yeah, definitely need a proper rugby tackle. Will, good to see you. Thanks very much indeed. Will Kingston, political commentator and host of the Fire at Will podcast. Let's get a voice note from Nick on Carla Denyer.
Carla Denyer and other wombles from the loony left are incandescent with rage that the Supreme Court have made the ruling that they have. Yet, if anybody dare criticise the ECHR for stopping people complaining about the illegals washing up on our shores every day, anybody that complains about that is apparently far right. The hypocrisy, Mike, is breathtaking, and it's time it was all called out and stopped. Have a good day.
Yeah, thank you very much. You know what's going to happen next, right? All the bozos that turn up as illegal migrants are going to start wearing dresses, and they'll turn up and go, "We're all trans, you know, we need to be given a shelter, sanctuary." Here's Carla Denyer and what she said about trans people on the BBC.
The EHRC guidance seems to be saying that if a lesbian association or venue wants to include trans women, and let's bear in mind that lesbian women, non-trans lesbian women are amongst the most supportive of trans people in the whole of society, the advice, seems to say that they won't be allowed to.
So would you like the guidance to be withdrawn, and then we'll...
Yes, exactly. The Greens are calling for the guidance to be withdrawn. It's clearly rushed and ill thought out, and they haven't consulted all the people who'd be affected.
OK.
We're saying withdraw it. Think again, consult everyone who'd be affected by this guidance, and then come out with something more thought out.
OK.
Yeah, OK then. So the non-trans lesbian community apparently are the most supportive of the trans community. Actually, I don't think that's right. I think she's got that completely wrong, because I remember seeing a march in Cardiff for women's rights, which was actually hijacked by people who wanted to sow the seeds for trans rights. And in fact, the lesbians, who are proper women, I'm sorry to use that word if that offends anybody, I don't care, proper women who actually happen to like other women who are lesbians, right? They don't like trans women because trans women are men, and lesbians don't like men very much usually. So why would they be supportive of them? So Carla Denyer's got that completely round her ears. She's got it wrong, actually. Sorry. This from Celia, who says there are lots of places that have large single toilets. Just have more of those. I'm not sure what you mean by that. What's a large single toilet? This one from Margaret in Birmingham. Morning, Mike. We're a sinking ship. We just cannot take any more of this useless Prime Minister. The country is being swamped and the people are being ignored. We never, ever hear from Yvette Cooper. Yeah, that's true. Probably a good thing. Dave in Aberdeen says, morning, Mike. If it gets too warm in the south for you, Miliband has plenty of giant fans in Scotland you can borrow. And also, on the Bibby Stockholm, Dave in Dorset says, the Bibby barge left Portland a few months ago. Why? Why are we not using it? Why are we not using the Bibby Stockholm anymore? And where's it gone? I mean, these are questions we need answers to, don't we? Has anybody seen it? Has it popped up where you are? 7:22.
Sarah Brimley and Dwayne Schick got together. They had a romantic encounter. They were playing touch rugby together at the weekends. Their team name was the Bricks. They brought their names together. We've heard couples getting married like Brangelina Benifer, for example. There's a recent poll by YouGov suggesting that the practice of a wife taking on the husband's name when they get married has fallen out of favour with younger generations. 2 in 3 young British women won't be taking their partner's name when they get married.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:25. I'm Mike Graham, and this, of course, is Morning Glory. We're talking once again, about the NHS, because Pat McFadden, who is, to all intents and purposes, he's got a very fancy title, something to do with the Duchy of Lancaster, but basically he's, to all intents and purposes, you know, Keir Starmer's deputy. Some might think he's actually in charge of the whole shebang, because he basically always comes across as the man who's kind of in charge of what it is that's going on. But we've been talking about the NHS because he, once again, as a government minister, appeared on TV yesterday and claimed that basically waiting lists in the NHS are going down. They have been going down for the last 6 months. I call that absolute BS and absolute rubbish. It's not happening. And this from Jerry in Cardiff. I'm here in Wales. I was referred urgently for colonoscopy 3 years ago. The GP did all the blood investigations to make sure there was no hold-up, so it was just a procedure to be done. Within the first 6 months, I had a text asking me, do I still need an appointment? GP rang them to say yes. I replied yes. I've had 4 texts since then, still asking me the same thing. Do I stay on the list or not? I've been moved to another list. According to the hospital, I'm still waiting for a procedure. The GP is livid. Labour in Wales have been shopping people from one list to another to change how many people are waiting. Texts are a form of consultation. Yeah, absolutely right. You know, as I said before, you can't continue to treat people, you know, like absolute kind of, you know, robots and idiots and expect them not to react. You can't pretend that waiting lists are going down when they're not. Everybody knows they're not. How about this from Jason from Brighton? Guaranteed income for landlords for housing immigrants, or constant problems with existing tenants who do nothing but complain and refuse to pay their rent for spurious reasons, and then you cannot get rid of them. What would you take? Jason from Brighton, yeah, listen, I'm not having a go at landlords. I'm not having a go at any landlord who would obviously jump at the chance of taking a guaranteed income for 5 years, guaranteed council tax paid for 5 years, no hassle at all from the neighbours, no hassle at all from the immigrants in the homes, because if there is any hassle, the government will take care of it, Serco will take care of it. If they smash the place up, if they burn it to the ground, you'll get compensation. If they smash the kitchen up, they will refurbish it for you at their cost. You know, I mean, of course you're going to take that deal. But what I'm saying is it's a bad deal for the taxpayer because we're paying for it. I don't blame the landlords, I blame the government and I blame Serco. It's as simple as that. Let's talk to Philip Ingram, MBE, former senior military intelligence officer, of course. Philip, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Interesting weekend, I thought. You know, I thought the Observer, in its new guise, actually had a decent front page for the first time in about 6 years, where they had the picture of Trump and Zelensky in that huge room in the Basilica, and it said, you know, Pope Francis's final act, because it kind of was, wasn't it?
Well, it was. You're bringing the two together. This was the first time that Zelensky and Trump had met face-to-face ever since that Oval Office spat that came on. And you know, you can tell by the body language there that Trump is leaning forward, leaning into Zelensky. Zelensky is holding court. And they were clearly making some real progress.
Yeah, absolutely right. And it seems as though there was a decent meeting. You know, Zelensky said it was an important meeting. He said it was hopeful that, you know, they would get something out of it. Trump seems to have slightly pivoted his position to be more pro-Zelensky and anti-Putin, which will upset those who don't like Donald Trump. But, you know, is he finally sort of getting towards a deal?
Well, we'd hope so. He's come out to say that, you know, there's a deal coming within the next 2 weeks. Now, he's been saying that for the last few weeks, but he has pivoted. But Trump is known to pivot and give the message out for the last person he's spoken to. So we have to see whether this is sustained over the coming days and whether the pressure on Russia continues. Of course, the Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov came out and has said that Russia's not willing to give up any territory, and therefore he's throwing the plans that Donald Trump is putting to the Russians back into Donald Trump's face.
Yeah, absolutely right. And let's have a look at what Donald Trump has been saying overnight. Since he got back to the US, he's been pretty brutal about wanting to end the war, and some of this language might upset people, but have a listen.
You know, they're losing a lot of people. We have 3,000-4,000 people dying every single week. That's a lot of people to lose. You can imagine parents waving from Ukraine and from Russia, waving to their son as he leaves, and, you know, a week later he's dead on a battlefield, all carved up and chopped up. I've seen it. I see the satellite pictures. They're horrible. They're horrible. I would say it can't get any worse. Body parts laying all over. I don't even like looking at them. Body parts laying all over the fields. What are they doing? It would have never started if I were president.
I mean, he's always said that, to be fair. But I saw a report sort of late yesterday, was coming from a Kyiv source, a media organisation there, saying that Vladimir Putin has apparently offered to stop all hostilities, providing that the West stops giving Ukraine any more arms.
Same report, and at the same time they said, of course, we're not going to give up any territory, and we're not going to negotiate any further. So this is Moscow trying to give out sops to Donald Trump to stop Donald Trump's anger being focused against them. It's not good enough. It's something that the Ukrainians can't accept. And Donald Trump is right. There are 3,000 to 4,000 individuals every week on both sides total getting killed in a horrible way. There's another double that getting mutilated, severely injured, and it is absolutely horrific.
And this is what Trump has to say about Crimea. Have a look at this.
We had a little dispute because I disagreed with something he said, and the cameras were rolling, and that was okay with me. But we had a dispute. But look. He's in a tough situation, a very tough situation. He's fighting a much bigger force, much bigger. And that force has not been very distinguished, It's been a lot tougher than they thought, but it helped them when we gave them $350 billion worth of weapons or cash.
Is Zelensky ready to give up Crimea, do you think, Mr. President?
Oh, I think so, yeah. Look, Crimea was 12 years ago. That was President Obama. They gave it up without a shot being fired. So don't talk to me about Crimea. Talk to Obama and Biden about Crimea.
I was just wondering what Zelensky thought.
And remember, this is Biden's war. This isn't Trump's war. I came in to try and solve a problem. And the problem is so many people are being killed.
And, there are plenty of people that would agree with his analysis there that not much was done in 2014 when Crimea was taken by the Russians. And is that something that you can foresee happening, where Zelensky more or less has to give up Crimea, whether he likes it or not?
Yeah, well, the West did nothing in 2014 when Russia invaded Crimea. Yeah. Zelensky's already proposed not giving up Crimea and the territory that Russia's captured, but recognizing that he can't take it back and leaving it in a position of stalemate and negotiating it back at some stage in the future. And he doesn't mean next year or the year after. He means this could take decades, the same length of time it took to reunify Germany. So Zelensky's already recognized that. It's just the status of Crimea. Donald Trump wanted to recognize it as de facto Russian territory and formally give it to them. Zelensky does not want to do that and has said he will not accept that, and the Ukrainian constitution doesn't allow him to do that.
Yeah, and so can you foresee, say, a plan which is done for peace, which leaves that whole situation kind of up in the air then, where Russia occupies it, Russia uses it, Russia has ships that are based there, Russia has troops that are based there, everybody pretends that it's part of Ukraine, but it really isn't?
Well, I can to a degree, but Crimea relies on getting natural resources, water in particular, from Ukraine.
Yeah.
And therefore, there's going to have to be some form of relationship with Ukraine to allow Crimea to be sustainable. And of course, the Ukrainians would not want the Russians to move their Black Sea fleet back into Crimea again, because that would threaten the sea lines. So there's a lot of negotiation to happen. However, I think the negotiation now is focused on the Russian side because they haven't given anything ever in any of the discussions that have happened. Steve Witkoff, the US Special Representative, has just repeated what Putin has said every time he's come away from his meetings. He hasn't forced him to change his mind in any way, shape or form.
No, sure. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens over the next days and weeks. Philip, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Philip Ingram, former senior military intelligence officer. Coming up, we're going to speak to Kinsey Schofield, I should say, rather, about Virginia Giuffre's suicide, which, of course, has got everybody talking on both sides of the Atlantic, and also Meghan's latest video in which she puts her daughter Lilibet front and centre of what she's doing, which she often said she would never do. Andy from Knott says this: in 2020, I started with a series of surgeries on both my eyes to correct a problem I had. A relatively new operation, and I was told I've been monitored for life. I had a total of 4 surgeries, 2 on each eye, and last saw the surgeon on the 21st of May 2024. That's last year, nearly a year ago, and they were going to see me in 6 months' time. Maybe they've lost the calendar. I'm still waiting. Labour are talking absolute cobblers. Well, this is, again, I'm afraid, indicative of the lies that this government tells, trying to pretend in soundbite form every time they appear on TV, whether it's the BBC or Sky or anywhere like that. Don't come on this show, of course, because they're too frightened. Last time we had Pat McFadden on here, I asked him how he thought it was possible for him to have claimed rent on a house that he wasn't living in after he moved into it, so that he could claim the rent because he couldn't claim his mortgage interest anymore. And you'll see the clip a little bit later on in the show. He didn't really have much answer to it other than to say, I did everything within the rules. You know, these people are snake oil salesmen, and they will tell you any old rubbish to try and get around you, particularly in the lead up to an election. Coming up this morning, we've got the Daily Telegraph saying, oh yeah, Keir Starmer's looking at maybe changing the immigration laws in this country, making them a bit stronger after the election. Do you think, as I've said before, my head zips up the back? Why don't you do it now? If you really want to influence people before the election, don't promise them something that will happen after it. Do it before the election actually happens. Rob says this: I'm a food nutrition advisor. I eat what I like, including zero nutritional value, empty calories and ultra-processed food. Your stomach churns it in acid and then takes what nutrients it can from it and removes the rest, but doesn't classify it like we do. Just eat a balanced diet over the week, binge sensibly at weekends if you like, and cut down during the week. Eat as healthily as you can afford, and your body will tell you if the amount of nutrition it's getting isn't right. Rob, thanks for that. This is on the news on the front page of the Times this morning, that ultra-processed food is killing people at younger and younger ages, and that 53% of the food that we eat in this country is processed, which is ridiculously high, isn't it? I mean, I'm not one for nanny statism, and I don't want to tell you that you shouldn't be able to eat whatever you want, because you should. But it's not very sensible if all you do is eat fast food. Let's get a voice note from Belinda.
Good morning, Mike. Great show as always. It's Belinda. I just thought I'd call because I phoned you last week about my NHS appointments and the roller coaster they've put me on since August, and before that, actually, last year and the year before and the year before. I've now got to a stage where I'm at ground zero and back at the doctors again, and I haven't moved from where I started. They're now saying, oh, we're sending you to another department, but we're waiting to hear back from them. So I got a text message at least. But the waiting time for that return or that response is like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks. And then when you do get a response, they're passing you on to someone else. So, but in the meantime, my condition is getting worse and they want people to go back to work. Crazy.
I know, absolutely ridiculous. They just can't handle dealing with people, humans. You know, the NHS, as I said during COVID, would rather you didn't get sick at all. They'd rather you didn't bother going to the doctor or, you know, clutter up the hospitals because you're ill. No. We'd rather just, you know, do our business without having to deal with patients at all. It's a bit inconvenient, isn't it? Coming up, we're going to talk to Kinsey Schofield. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:40. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock when Julie Hartley-Brewer will be here. We've got an announcement for London taxi drivers, so if you're listening in a black cab this morning, you'll want to hear this, but we're not going to do it just yet. We'll do it very, very soon. Just on the carbs front, Karen in Southampton says, as a GP, I advise my patients to eat full-fat products. Centre your meals around meat, fish and eggs, including red meat. Avoid and reduce ultra-processed food and sugar. This includes starchy carbs, which break down to sugar as you digest them, i.e. bread, pasta, rice, cereals and oats. Happy heat wave, she goes. Yeah, apparently we're talking about Blowtorch UK. Let's go to a hotter part of the country, or the world rather. Kinsey Schofield, royal commentator over there in Los Angeles, California. Looking beautiful this morning, Kinsey. Very nice to see you. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much. I have enjoyed the program this morning, especially. I love when you play the voicemails. That's so cool.
I know, aren't they great? I mean, they've really sort of revolutionised what we do, you know, people, because it's not always easy to get the courage up to ring up into a radio station and talk to me and be interrupted by me all the time. This way you can just make a little statement, put it out there, and we play it, and it's lovely, isn't it?
It is, and it tells us a lot about your viewers, and it's why I absolutely adore them. They're all very smart, passionate people.
Yes, they really are. I'd like to say the same about Prince Andrew, but I'm not sure that I can. There were some very strange things that happened over the weekend. Obviously, the sad announcement of Virginia Giuffre's demise led to all kinds of strange things. Lady Victoria Hervey came out and was rather rude and horrible about her. Andrew, we're told, has sort of thought that maybe because of what's happened, he can now have some kind of redemption following his appearance at the Easter church service. But obviously that's not going to happen, is it?
Absolutely not. I think he has to understand that this was a chapter closed for him. People are always going to sympathize with her going forward, no matter what the difficulty was leading up to her death. We're looking at an image of her right now, if you're watching us on YouTube, that she posted a few weeks ago announcing that she had 4 days to live. And 4 days passed. This story started to unravel. Police saying that there was not a statement made. A bus driver saying it was just a tap, and that this individual was being dramatic. And it gave a lot of people. It inspired a lot of people to say, if she is capable of being dishonest about this, what else is she capable of being dishonest about? And you did see some of the pro-Prince Andrew voices use this as an opportunity to jeopardize her credibility. Obviously, what we now understand is that she was in a really dark place. Of course, a post like that should have been our first indication, but we now know that she was in a really dark place. And I do think that historically, people are going to side with her and ache for her, and she is going to carry the sympathy. I don't think Prince Andrew's going to have a lot of voices taking up for him in the future because of the way this has ended so dramatically, so sadly. Yeah, absolutely tragic situation. I mean, a lot of people asking the question over the weekend as well. You know, the Epstein papers have yet to be released by the Trump government. I mean, I think he said he was going to release them, but is there any hope of that happening? I mean, we saw him release a lot of the JFK documents. I think that, you know, the issue with the Epstein documents, and I know you know this, is that Trump had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and other high-profile individuals had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. So I'd love to say, you know, Trump said he would, so he will. However, I also think that he's a very loyal person at the end of the day and wouldn't do anything to jeopardize any relationships that he didn't want to jeopardize.
Well, let's have a listen to what Donald Trump had to say about the death of Virginia Giuffre.
Well, it's a very sad situation, the whole thing. That whole situation is very sad, her and others. And so, certainly, that's a horrible thing. Horrible.
It really is. Let's finish up on something slightly more cheerful. Meghan and Lilibet. We see for the first time Lilibet speaking. We haven't. If you haven't seen, well, I know you've seen it, but certainly if somebody hasn't seen it yet on this show, because we ran it in the first hour, check this out.
What do we think, Lily?
I think it's beautiful.
I mean, it's only a very small sort of clip, and people were making a lot of the cute little American accent she's got. You know, it's difficult to do anything but love little children. So, I mean, there's nothing other than something nice to say about little Lilibet. But her mother, of course, said she'd never utilise her children for publicity. But here we are.
Yeah. Here we are. I mean, the hypocrisy. Well, really quickly, I just want to say we should stress that Prince Andrew says he had nothing to do with Virginia, and that was wrong of me that I didn't stress that Prince Andrew says.
That's fine.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I should stress that. But when it comes to, I'm going to probably anger some people right now. I think that she sounds adorable. I'm going to give it to Meghan. Lily sounds adorable, but Harry and Meghan have repeatedly warned of apocalyptic. This apocalyptic doom when it comes to children and social media. They were just in New York talking about protecting your children from social media. And here's Meghan Markle, the hypocrite, using Instagram and Lily's voice and little hands to boost her personal brand. Because it's like you said, how can we say anything critical about this child? You can't. She's adorable. Yeah. And it's Meghan Instagramming her children for publicity and to monetize her jam business. And this is, how can we take Harry and Meghan seriously when they're talking about how people should protect their children from online dangers when Meghan is monetizing hers?
Right, and literally putting her online. You know, so that everybody can check it out. You know, because they were only saying that at the weekend, I think, weren't they? Saying that how, you know, they were trying to launch this crusade against, you know, online bullying, against online use of children and all the rest of it. And here we are.
No, it's a classic Sussex contradiction. Do these people not realize that we have receipts, that when they say things, there are filing cabinets in our head, and we can go back to the exact date and event where they said or did something that completely contradicts what they're doing today. This looks shameless. It looks absolutely shameless and vile. This is the same woman that said she did not want her children to grow up in the UK because there were going to be paparazzi sitting outside while she picked up and dropped her children off from school, which was a lie. That does not happen to the Wales family. No. And here we are today. She's playing paparazzi inside her own home.
Of course she is. And I have to say, just looking at a young Lilibet, she looks an awful lot like her father and nothing at all like her mother.
Well, I haven't. All I've seen is the back of her hand and the back of her head. So I would say, from what I've seen, she does look a lot like Prince Harry. But I feel sorry for these children that have now just become like these involuntary ambassadors for whatever new manic launch Meghan is announcing today, tomorrow, or 2 weeks ago. Yeah, love Meghan. What can you say? Kinsey, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Kinsey Schofield there, talking absolute common sense from the hills of California, the Hollywood Hills indeed. Let's get a voice note from Mike on Serco.
Morning, Mike. Mike in Cheshire here. Imagine for a moment all the rental properties in your street being taken over to house migrants. How on earth would the authorities manage to keep an eye on all those properties? And think about this as well. How would they risk assess it? Would they check to see who the neighbours might be? Maybe a family with young daughters? It's absolute madness.
Yeah. It totally is madness, and we're going to talk about it some more coming up with Alf Mehmet, chairman of Migration Watch. This is Morning Glory.
Also, we're just hearing reports that Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky have held a meeting ahead of Pope Francis' funeral. It's alleged the pair also agreed to meet after the funeral later today. We were saying that's going to be a very uneasy relationship, of course, because the deal on the table, as far as we understand from the United States to Ukraine, is you take it or you leave it. Steve Witkoff had been meeting with President Putin. There's no doubt that Trump wants to have a closer relationship with Putin. That has left Zelensky in a very invidious position.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:52. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. Julie Hartley-Brewer will be here. Edward says this, Mike, my wife just failed a driving test and now can't get booked in until October. Disgraceful. This government can't even get this basic thing right. Well, it wouldn't surprise me to tell you, or indeed for you to learn, that it might be the difficulty is that there are too many illegal migrants being given driving tests, because we know, for example, that they're being given driving lessons down in the south of this country and possibly in other parts of the country as well. So maybe that's why you can't access the services, like most people can't access all manner of services in this country, because of the massive number of migrants. Front page of the Telegraph today, Prime Minister plans migrant cut to fight reform. Another promise that they say they're going to make good on after the elections on May the 1st, which is obviously this Thursday. Local elections taking place, and the massive one, the big Runcorn by-election as well, which reform might be on target to win. We don't know, but that's what we're hearing. Let's get a note from Simon on Serco.
Good morning, Mike. Simon from Buckinghamshire. Well, regarding the news that the government intends to put people into private rented houses, well, then they'll start, obviously when there's a housing shortage, they'll start putting the British people into the hotels. Wonderful.
Yeah, maybe so. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Let's talk to Alp Mehmet, chairman of Migration Watch, and get his view on it. Alp, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Mike.
Extraordinary story over the weekend that we're still picking up on here, and lots of people angry about. The government, in the guise of Serco, the private company who get an awful lot of government contracts, billions of pounds worth of government contracts, offering to pay basically landlords for properties up and down the country, a whole list of parts of the country, in the east of the country, the north, west, the northeast, where they want to house illegal migrants, guaranteeing landlords income for 5 years, council tax paid, and all repairs done at the taxpayer's expense.
Yeah, it's a nonsense, isn't it, Mike? I despair with all governments. They keep talking, and then doing nothing. Whatever they do, in fact, has the opposite effect to the one that they tell us they're going to do something about. I've also seen over the weekend that Angela Rayner, when she was given the housing brief, said, it's impossible. I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm going to resign. That's what's rumoured to have been said. Well, I don't blame her, frankly, because firstly, they're not going to build the houses that they're going to, they say they're going to build 300,000 a year. But in addition to that, whatever they do build, in fact, it's going to go to migrants already here or migrants still to come. Right. It's just rubbish. It really is that we're being taken for a ride. Your caller, immediately before I came on, Mike, he was saying about does the government ever check that who is in the neighbourhood before they plonk migrants there? They don't. Of course they don't. But even more importantly, they don't check, because they can't, who the migrants are.
Yeah, right.
This is really quite frightening, I think, that those who are now entering the country illegally are coming here in greater and greater numbers, and they will continue to come in greater numbers until the government is convincing about wanting to stop them.
Exactly.
So far, they've said nothing, absolutely nothing, that will convince anyone that they have any intention of stopping the boats, let alone the wider issue of legal migration, which is also totally out of control.
Well, it is, because a piece of the Telegraph this morning mentions the fact that, you know, that Yvette Cooper is apparently trying to address the idea that scores of foreign students, possibly hundreds of them, come to Britain on graduate visas and then transfer to health and social care visas. And we also know that people who come here on student visas and or work visas, once those visas run out, they remain here and seek asylum, and even they get put into free hotels.
Well, all I would say to the Home Secretary is, and I won't say the word, but no, Sherlock. The fact is that we said, and we've been saying for years, that this is what happens.
Yeah.
And it isn't just the fact that there's lots of would-be students coming here who have no intention of leaving, but those that do come, they are here. While they're here, a lot of them working illegally. They're in the gig workforce. All that does, firstly, what we are talking about today has a huge impact on housing. Yeah. It makes the high housing prices even more difficult. But secondly, it also it contributes to the difficulties, the problems that we have with regard to employment, and a lot of young people, foreigners, working here illegally.
It really does. And I mean, in terms of, you know, how to fix it, we've seen how it works in America. Donald Trump has managed to fix the illegal migration problem on the southwest border by simply just turning people away and sending people back. So guess what? They've stopped coming in quite such large numbers because they know that they won't be successful. If we could only do that, that would be at least the answer, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that is exactly the answer, Mark. And that's what's not going to change, really, from what we've heard from the government. Anyone arriving illegally, firstly, is denied entry and then is returned, is moved on, as we keep saying, time and time again. Until you refuse and remove, then I'm afraid that they will continue coming. And it's no good the government saying the numbers of removals have gone up. As I keep saying, yeah, but who exactly are you removing, oh government?
Yes. Well, they removed 20,000 people, most of whom volunteered to go. And since then, they haven't removed anybody, as you well know. Alp, very good to talk to you. Sorry, we've got to run. We're out of time. Alp Mehmet, Chairman of Migration Watch. Coming up in the next hour, we've got loads more to do. Richard Tice is here. We'll talk to him about the ridiculousness of this latest migrant ploy. And also, of course, the NHS. Still lies from the government. Nothing is changing. This is Talk. Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week.
I can announce this government will begin the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War. We will deliver our commitment to spend 2.5% of GDP on defence, but we will bring it forward so we reach that level in 2027.
The answer from European capitals has been as resounding as it is clear. We are in an era of rearmament to respond to the short-term urgency to act and to support Ukraine, but also to address the long-term need to take on more responsibility for our own European security.
On Saturday, we also agreed a new £2.2 billion loan for Ukraine, backed not by the British taxpayer, but by the profits from frozen Russian assets. It is my pleasure to bring from His Majesty the King a letter. He sends his best wishes and his regards, of course, but he also asked me to bear this letter and bring it to you. So can I present the letter from the King to you?
Thank you very much.
Am I supposed to read it right now?
Yeah, please do.
I will do.
I've got to tell him what your reaction is, so I need to know. I need to know.
He is a great gentleman. A great, great gentleman. He said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time, and he better not be right. Well, I just think he should be more appreciative, because this country has stuck with them through thick and thin. We've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us, because as you know, that's right there, that's the border.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are not
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's already coming up to 3 minutes past 8. Extraordinary stuff. It's going to be a lovely day today. It's going to be up in the 20s. It's going to be a great week. Some people are calling it what can only be described as Blowtorch UK. That's the Daily Star. And of course, we've got Dean from Dagenham saying, one paper calls 25 degrees of blowtorch. This climate nonsense brainwashing is beyond the joke now. I wonder why it's not mentioned. The hottest April day in the UK was actually in 1949 at 29.4 degrees. Maybe that goes against the narrative, says Dean. Well, you may be right. Of course, what we have got, no doubt, will be a few wildfire warnings, and we'll get those big red maps that the BBC will roll out. Talk about make sure you take bottled water with you everywhere you go. Make sure you put plenty of sunscreen on. Whatever you do, don't sit out in the sun too much. You know, we haven't really had much sun so far this year, so just bloody well go out and enjoy it, for heaven's sake. Stop listening to all these killjoys who go, oh my goodness me, you might get burned, you might get skin cancer. Yeah, well, maybe. You know, sometimes it's worth taking a risk, after all. It's coming up to 4 minutes past 8. Richard Tice is going to join us very shortly. We'll be asking him what he makes of the latest claim from Serco, that they can take your home, they can rent it out to some migrants, and they can make sure that you can live happily ever after, knowing that you'll be getting guaranteed income for 5 years, guaranteed council tax paid, guaranteed any repairs that are needed to be done will be done. And, of course, if the migrants happen to set fire to the house, don't worry, they'll give you a new house. No problem at all. I mean, it's extraordinary, isn't it? 0344 499 1000. Also, we've been talking about the NHS. Many of you still telling me that you're not buying this ludicrous nonsense that comes out from every Labour minister. Pat McFadden was guilty of it yesterday when he started saying, oh yeah, we're bringing the waiting list down. They've been going down for the last 6 months. No, they are not. That is an outright lie. And everybody who knows anything about the NHS knows that they are simply not dealing with people. They are moving them from one list to another, and they are not in any way, shape or form allowing more appointments to be made. Absolute and utter rubbish. I'm not having it. Also, we'll be talking about Rachel Reeves on the front page of the Times this morning. It looks as though the unions are going to be after her this summer. Pay demands coming from teachers and from nurses. And by the way, in case you think that nurses have got a really, really hard job, there's one particular nurse who's in the Sun who's taken her clothes off and doing all sorts of things that she really shouldn't be doing anywhere near a stethoscope on OnlyFans. Yes, that's right. She's making money from being what can only be described as a bit nude. It's like carry-on nursing, I'm afraid. We'll tell you more about that as well. 5 minutes past 8. This, of course, is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Here's one from Leslie, who is just another person who has got a story for us. And I'm very, very grateful to you, Leslie, for sending this in. Just to tell you my story, I was referred to see a spinal surgeon in 3rd of January, as it was urgent. I called on Friday to see where I was on the list and when I may be seen, as I'm in constant agony. I need help to get dressed, but I was told that, yes, I am urgent, but the waiting list is 87 weeks long. 87 weeks. If you consider 52 weeks to be a year, that's basically 18 months, isn't it? I live in Worthing. Leslie, I'm really sorry. Hopefully somebody can get you seen faster than that. And just before we talk to Richard Tice, there's a story I want to tell you about, which I'll explain later, but it's all about cab drivers. I've been talking to a lot of London cab drivers, and many of them are absolutely frustrated because they can't renew their licences because the TfL, that organisation, dreadful organisation run by Sadiq Khan, is messing them around. They've changed their way of taking renewals for licences, and the system doesn't work. And so a lot of guys are now finding that they can't actually drive for a living because the licence can't be renewed. I'll tell you more about that coming up in a little while. Let's say a very good morning, though, first of all, to Richard Tice on this very beautiful summer's day, even though it's only April. Richard, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you from a very sunny Boston, where the weather is glorious, and I think we should enjoy it and forget all these doomsters and climate morons.
Yeah.
Let's enjoy a bit of warmth and sunshine. Let's just also remember, at the beginning of COVID 5 years ago, we had a lovely sunny spell. So this is great. What's not to like?
Yeah.
I mean, and the other good news is that we're making more and better English wine and English champagne because of the slightly warmer climate. So I think, this is one of the great growth opportunities for the United Kingdom. We're not going to get any growth from this government. That's clear.
No.
All to see.
Well, unless, of course, you're a landlord, in which case you're going to be very, very happy this morning when you wake up to find that you've got a letter from Serco landing on your front porch, which says, don't worry about all these people that you've been having problems with in your rental sector. We will guarantee you 5 years' money. We'll guarantee your council tax is paid. We'll guarantee that any repairs required we will pay for. I mean, talk about profligacy with taxpayers' money. This is old two-tier Keir's latest wheeze to make life better for everyone.
And I was not surprised, but furious to see that Boston is also on that list, as is Skegness, both towns in my constituency, where we've already got a housing shortage. We've already got far too much illegal and legal immigration that is infuriating the local population because we've got huge numbers of houses of multiple occupation. And the reality is that doesn't lead to communities. It doesn't lead to people looking after their streets in the same way. So it's not good for communities and towns. And this has just got to stop. But you talked about carry on nursing. All we're hearing is carry on waffling from this government about stopping the boats, smashing their gangs. But actually, the thing's getting far worse. I mean, that's the harsh reality. That's why they need to rent more of these properties. And it is an absolute scandalous abuse of taxpayers' cash. Not only do they get all these free things, they get free heating, they get free cleaning. And there's another aspect which no one's really picked up on. Of course, the same is true with the hotels that are rented, where they've all been basically smashed up. I've got evidence of that, treated appallingly. And so all of those hotel owners will have those hotels as and when they're returned to them in years to come. There'll be a massive multi-billion-pound bill to restore those hotels.
Yeah. Of course there will. But, of course, taxpayers' money doesn't mean anything to this government. They just think they can spend it willy-nilly whenever they feel like it. And, I mean, without getting into the ins and outs of the election, because obviously we're only a couple of days away from it, front page of Telegraph today, Keir Starmer's new plan is to apparently fight reform by tightening the restrictions on immigration. Not today, not tomorrow, but after the election. I mean, do they really do? I mean, I know it's a Scottish phrase and people don't like me saying it, but do they think when your head zips up the back?
That's a new one on me. I'll have to think about that. But what if you read into that article in a bit more detail, it actually says, we're going to produce an immigration white paper. In other words, more waffle, more kick the can down the road. On May the 22nd, you're going to see the latest ONS net migration, legal migration numbers for the whole of the calendar year 2024. It'll be another absolute horror show. I would expect it to show well above 500,000 people came in 2024. So that's my current projection. And, we don't actually need any more people. We've got plenty of people. We've got a record population. What we need to do is to get millions of those people back into work, contributing to the economy, because too many people have made a lifestyle choice, a lifestyle choice to sit on tax-free benefits, paid by those of us that actually go to work. And we have to change the culture in this country that work is a good thing. Guess what? It's great for your mental health. Get up, get out, and get on, folks.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's good for your family, it's good for your community, and it's good for our country. So that's what we've got to do. We don't need more people. We've just got to train up and motivate our own people and also motivate people to take risk, be an entrepreneur, set up a business, employ people. But this government is making it so hard to employ people, ever higher national insurance, ever more employee regulations, that just moves the balance of risk. We all want to look after our employees well, but if you just tilt the balance of risk and reward too much away from the person taking the risk, the employer, then eventually people, and lots of people are saying to me, I'm not going to bother growing, I'm not going to bother taking any more risk, it's too much like hard work, too little reward.
Yeah, but unfortunately, that's not the case in the private and the public sector, is it? Because we've got front page of the Times today. Rachel Reeves, the other massive Achilles heel, if you like, for this government is the economy. The economy getting worse and worse. She goes over to Washington last week, only to be told that the IMF are going to downgrade Britain to 1.1% growth, probably over the next year and possibly two.
You'll be lucky.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you get above, 0.5%, you'll be doing well. Millions of public sector workers, though, including teachers and nurses, are now going to be after 4% of a pay rise, with Rachel Reeves no doubt caving in and giving it to them.
Well, we've just got to remember the borrowing numbers that came out last week. This country borrowed an extra £152 billion in the year to the end of March. That's about £3,000 per household, literally stuck onto the mortgage of your house in 1 year. And if the unions think there's loads of money sloshing around, then I've got news for you, folks. The more we spend, more than we actually earn as a nation, the faster we head towards bankruptcy. It's very simple.
Yeah.
And this cannot go on. It's utterly, it's catastrophic, the direction of travel.
It really is. And the problem is that there is no end in sight, because all they've got, this government, is no money coming in. I mean, we found out that almost all of their exchequer kind of plans, for example, VAT on public schools, no really net increase. We saw capital gains tax increases not actually resulting in positive tax revenue, but actually resulting in a 10% loss. We've got millionaires leaving the country at a rate of knots. You've got, literally none of the plans that they put into place to raise money from the rich, if you like, have worked. They've all backfired.
They have indeed, and that's the tragedy of it, is that risk takers, entrepreneurs, successful, hardworking people are fleeing the country, and the data is starting to show it. As you say, capital gains tax receipts down substantially last year, even though they've been increasing the rate, and it's what's called the Laffer curve. The more you tax, then you get to a point where actually people stop bothering, and so the less money you take. And you want to get to that perfect point where you reduce taxes, and that means that people find it more worthwhile to go and take risk, to invest, to grow, to be more productive, and so actually the growth is faster, and you take higher tax revenues. But this lot don't understand it. The previous lot, the Tories, they didn't understand it. I mean, they're all absolutely clueless. But then none of them have really been out there and had a proper job. No,
that is a problem. Let's have a look at Pat McFadden. He was out doing the rounds yesterday on the BBC, amongst others. And one of the things that I find really, really onerous and ghastly about this government is the barefaced lies they tell, particularly about the NHS. Have a look at this.
And I point to what's happening in the NHS because there's a belief out there, and probably every party hears this on the doorstep. Doesn't matter who you vote for, it doesn't make a difference. We've had years and years of the NHS getting worse. We inherited last year an NHS with the lowest levels of public confidence in history. We are starting to turn that round. Waiting lists are coming down, not up. New diagnostic centres in your own community, 4.5 million new diagnostic tests in those this year. That's 50% more than the same level last year.
absolute and utter nonsense. I've been banging this drum for a while, Richard. My absolute and utter belief, and I don't know whether you guys have looked at this, is that waiting lists are being, shall we say, buggered about with in some way, shape or form, so that they can be changed, people can be moved from one to another. This is I get massive amounts of posts on this and messages. Mike says this, Brian says this rather, regarding hospital appointments, my wife had an appointment and a cancellation letter in the same envelope. At least they're now saving on postage. People are finding that they've been giving appointments to them, and then within about 2 days of the appointment supposedly being had, the cancellation letter comes and it's cancelled, and they get moved off one waiting list onto another one. And we know that they've removed thousands, possibly millions of people who just haven't answered the letter, do you still need treatment?
Yeah, there's no question that, look, it's good to have targets to try and improve performance, understand what's going on. But if you basically just totally rely on them, you end up with manipulation. And these numbers, without question, are being manipulated. When I talk to healthcare professionals, whether it's GPs, whether it's in the social care system, pharmacies, in my constituency of Boston and Skegness, I'm hearing some just ludicrous situations. One constituent recently was pushed 3 times from the GP to the diagnostic centre, back to the GP as to who was going to do the blood test, because neither of them was sure they would be paid for doing it by the NHS relative to their financial target. So the end result was 3.5 weeks later, the individual still had not received the blood test. You go anywhere else in Europe and you'll get a blood test within about a day, and the results you'll get back within a day or two. Here, this constituent told me that they never got the results of the blood test. So you just sort of, you're left hoping, well, that probably means no news is good news. I mean, maybe quite nice to actually just sort of say, here are the results, and this shows that it's fine. And with AI, you can do all of that very, very simply, but maybe they're still using their fax machines and no one else has got a fax machine, so they can't communicate with anybody.
No, that could well be true. I'm going to finish on a positive note for you. I mean, whatever happens on Thursday, I know you're a Liverpool fan. Liverpool won the league yesterday in some style. Somebody actually sent me a picture of somebody holding up a banner at the marathon saying, "Run if you hate Tottenham." And, you know, 5-1 against Tottenham is pretty brutal, I have to say. But you must be very happy.
I was extremely happy watching it on TV, and it was a rout, a complete and utter rout by Liverpool of North London, frankly. And in political terms, it was the working communities thrashing the metropolitan establishment literati. That's what it was. And congratulations to the team and the new manager. What's been achieved, absolutely remarkable.
You have all bad news for David Lammy, as if he didn't need it. But there we are. Good to talk to you, Richard Tice. Thank you very much indeed. Let's get a voice note from Jimmy on NHS appointments.
Hi, Mike. It's Jimmy from Halifax. Reference the NHS appointments. All they're doing is taking you out of an appointment and then putting somebody else in that appointment to make it look like they're in the system straight away. My personal situation is, one day I got a letter cancelling my appointment, which was due in 3 days from the letter. Then I got another letter with a new appointment. Then I got another letter cancelling my new appointment. And then I got another letter with a new appointment, which later got cancelled. All that was on the same day. They're just taking the Michael out of us. Pardon, taking your name in vain. But yeah, there's something going on. Great show. Keep it up.
Jimmy,
Thanks.
thank you very much. Isn't it? It's very weird, isn't it? I mean, Jimmy is one of many people who are telling me the same story. You get an appointment, it gets cancelled. You get another appointment, that gets cancelled. You get another appointment, that gets cancelled. One from that we just read out, somebody got an appointment and a cancellation letter in the same envelope. So it depends which one you open first. Amazing. It's 8:20.
cited women of a certain age, and then it was a mess because Rod Stewart got involved, and then lots of people like Vanessa Feltz and other people came, Kirsty Allsop came on board and said, we've also experienced problems. What he said is, the investigation's still going on, but he does say that he was left suicidal and that his mum passed away at the end of last year, and that was, that took up the final few days.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
8:23, welcome back to Morning Glory. We are here, of course, all the way through until 10 o'clock. Julian Hartley-Greer will be along then. Henry Hill is a guest columnist in The Sun today. He's in for Harry Cole, who's away. He says, for Nigel Farage, the hard work comes after he beats Kieran Campbell. We'll talk about the election results coming up, of course, on Thursday of this week. Just before we do that, let me explain this story to you about London cab drivers. And I know that for those of you who don't live in London, you might not particularly get why this is a big deal. But it is a big deal, and it may be something that will happen in your part of the world as well, because it could happen in Manchester, it could happen in Newcastle, it could happen in Leeds, it could happen in Glasgow. Basically, Transport for London, which is the organisation that runs all of the transport in London, whether it be local cab licences, whether it be the underground buses, the overground, the cable cars, everything that runs in London, basically as public transport, is run by TfL, a ghastly, very badly run, overbearing company, which is stuffed with people making too much money and stuffed with the people who are appointed, of course, by Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London. They basically changed the system for taxi drivers somehow renewing their licences. And this was brought to my attention by a cab driver who I was in a cab with just the other day. And he said, it's a nightmare because they can't get through to TfL to renew their licences. They can't get through on email. It keeps bouncing back. They can't ring anybody. There's no numbers available. We asked TfL about this, and this is what they said. We take our responsibilities for licensing taxi and private hire drivers extremely seriously to ensure the provision of safe taxi and private hire services for the public. We have recently introduced a new licensing system which has delivered a number of benefits to licensees, including the ability to track their applications online. And then here's the kicker. Unfortunately, we have experienced some issues which have impacted our processing times, compounding the difficulties we experienced following the cyber incident last year. We are working closely with our system service provider to rectify any systems issues and have increased the number of licensing staff who are processing and issuing licenses. Problem is, guys, the people that I'm talking to aren't able to drive taxis because their licence hasn't been renewed. That means they're incapable of making any money. That means they're in danger of losing their homes. So you people need to get onto this, and you need to get onto it fast. We have been asking TfL for a phone number and an email address so that taxi drivers can get in touch with them over the course of the next days and weeks so that they can get these things sorted out. They have yet to provide that. Okay, the vast majority of drivers, they say, have been unaffected. However, we are aware that some drivers have been impacted, mainly those where we had requested that the driver provides missing or additional information. No, wrong, incorrect. The people who are affected by it are the people who can't actually even get through to you to get the form from you. And you can't even get the form from you in order to fill it out. So that's where the problem is. They say we're working to resolve any urgent licensing issues. Well, you need to work harder, and you need to give us a number. You need to give us a place to go. Because right now, I would say, TfL, you're getting 0 points, nil point out of 10 for sorting this system out. These are ordinary working men and women who need to be able to make a living, and you're preventing them from doing so. And quite frankly, if you don't sort it out soon, there might be some lawsuits coming your way. Not from me, but from people who are unable to make a livelihood for themselves. Let's talk to Henry Hill, columnist at The Sun, who is, of course, a man after my own heart. He likes to talk about politics. He likes to write about politics. He knows a thing or two about these upcoming elections. Henry, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good to see you. Unless we are on track for a major polling miss, according to you this morning, Reform UK looks set to do rather well in Thursday's local elections. It certainly seems that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And this could be a really historic moment because, of course, just like in 2019, Nigel Farage led the Brexit Party to be the first time that a party other than Labour or the Conservatives had won a national election in decades, and if you include the Liberals, in well over a century. And so now he's got a chance to break through into town halls up and down the country, build out that base and get reform ready for 2029.
Yeah. And of course, the big story that seemed to be doing the rounds over the weekend was whether or not there's likely to be some kind of deal done between the Conservatives and Reform. I mean, I think both parties have quite clearly said there will not be a deal done at national level. There will never be a deal done in Parliament, if you like. But there could well be deals done at local sort of council level.
Yeah, this is, I think, the thing that's going to be a really interesting test for reform. So the Conservatives are quite a decentralised party when it comes to local government. Tory councillors are free to basically make their own decisions about who they go into alliances with. That's not the case with Labour, and it's not the case with Reform. Now, Nigel Farage has said that he's ruling out Reform doing deals with the Conservatives, even at a local level, to take control of a town hall. But I think that's going to be an interesting point of tension, because if you're a Reform councillor and you have given up your time and money to stand for election and make a difference in your local area, and you've got your own democratic mandate, now imagine that the Conservatives, as is probable, are your only option for getting into power, right? They're there, they've got enough councillors along with you. Are you going to just turn that down? Because Nigel Farage has said so. Are all of them going to turn it down? So I think this is where Nigel's command and control culture, which, he's a superstar, he's the reason this party exists, but there does seem to be a tension often in his parties between his need to decide everything from the centre and the need to attract people into politics who can make his parties into bigger institutions.
Yes. And I mean, one of the issues that happened to Reform, I suppose, this year, you might say, is their falling out with Rupert Lowe, one of their 5 MPs. If you were to only read Twitter, you would think that that was a catastrophic mistake. But the polls would suggest that nobody really cares about that.
No, the falling out with Rupert Lowe is absolutely something that animates people who, as you say, like me, tragic nerd, really loves this kind of stuff more than it does the average voter. But it does matter more than you might think just from the polls, because what Rupert Lowe represented was, before he was expelled, he individually had done about 46% of all the House of Commons work on record of the entire 5-person Reform group in the House of Commons. Now, the challenge is, if you want to build a small party into a big party, you need people who are prepared to be good at being an MP, at being a councillor. And if you're not attracting that calibre of candidate, and I know that from what I've heard from a few sources, people have been put off by this, that limits your long-term potential for growth. It's not necessarily going to hurt Nigel in the short term. It's not going to knock his poll rating. But it does make a big difference whether or not the people that are elected off the back of that are good or not.
Right, well, that's always going to be the issue, isn't it, for a party like Reform, is how well can they actually do in terms of finding decent candidates, and having then found them, how well can they be vetting them to make sure that they haven't got anything sort of dark and dingy in their past.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, again, Farage is not a far-right politician. That's always been a slur, but as he leads a right-wing party, it is a problem for him that far-right people do try and get in. How can his party make sure that they catch and expel those in time? But we've also seen some other sort of weird misses with their candidate vetting. One Reform candidate recently was very publicly in favour of paying reparations for slavery. Now, I don't think that that's something that most Reform voters are necessarily in favour of. And again, it's an understandable challenge. They're a new party with a relatively small central machine. Full candidate vetting is quite resource intensive, doing full background checks and everything else. But the danger is, of course, that if this happens too often, especially if they start winning more seats, or worse, after a general election, then that could do serious damage to their credibility. Imagine if Nigel did win 60 or more seats at the general election, looked like he was having his historical moment, and then it just turned out that one candidate after another was unsuitable, had to have the whip withdrawn.
Yeah, absolutely. That's not what he wants. Good to talk to you, Henry. Thank you very much indeed. Henry Hill, guest columnist in The Sun today, talking about not just the Reform scenario for Thursday, but also the Tories as well, asking the question, just how bad a night are they going to have? But we'll find out, and whether that has an effect on Kemi Badenoch and whether she can still run the place, we shall see. Let's go to the phones, though, because lots of you want to talk about the NHS. Many of you have got stories to tell. Here's David in Buckinghamshire. David, very good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Graham. I'm just listening to what everybody else has experienced, and I had the same. in 2014, I had 3 written letters saying I got appointments, and then I had 3 cancellation letters.
Right.
And then I got a text message saying, your 11 o'clock this morning is now cancelled, and this was at 11 o'clock, they told me.
Really? And was all of these letters came in a short period of time together, did they?
No, they didn't. I mean, I wouldn't have minded so much if they were saving money on postage, which it seems to be, and that to me is they're just massaging the figures.
Right.
You know, and then when I phoned up and said, when's my next appointment, they said, you're not on the list anymore.
Wow.
I said, what? I said, I've been checked for skin cancer and I'm waiting for the results. She said, no. And I just thought, oh, well, it can't be that serious then. So, as it turns out, at Christmas I got a real bad lung infection and I was on antibiotics. In fact, I took 58 of them.
Wow.
And not once did I see the GP. I was looked after very well, I might add, by paramedics.
Okay.
And during that period, I had to have an X-ray. And while I was there, I just thought, I'll pop into the dermatology and just ask them why they keep cancelling my appointments.
Right.
And the lady was wonderful. I've got to give her that. She said, this is disgusting. She said, 10 o'clock tomorrow. I said, oh, okay.
Wow.
And I went in, and the guy said, oh, how are you? I said, yeah, I'm fine. Just no, that's all right. He said, what we originally did. He said, strip off. So he said, oh, I don't like the look of this. Anyway, it turns out that I had cancer on my back.
Right.
And that was all done in one day.
Wow. Just because you happened to walk in there?
Pardon?
Just because you happened to walk in there?
Yeah. I mean, if the lady said to me, you have to go back to your GP and get a referral, I would not have bothered.
No.
Because you can't get a bloody appointment with your GP anyway.
Sure.
But she was really great. And they were great that day. But now, after 6 weeks waiting for the biopsy to confirm that I have skin cancer, they now want me, I had to go and see them, they want me now to have another operation to take more of it out to make it doubly sure.
Okay.
But I've got to wait between 8 and 10 weeks to get that done.
That's bonkers, isn't it? Absolutely mad.
And I've been to my GP and said, look, last year there was nothing there. Within 7 months, it's gone from nothing to being cancer.
Yeah.
Now I've got to wait another, it's going to be at least 3 months.
Yeah.
I said, what can you do? And he went, well, it's difficult, isn't it? I said, well, it isn't difficult. I said, because so far this year, and this is what annoys me about coming down the waiting list, because people are paying. I've used savings. I've been PAYE all my life.
Yeah.
I've paid out £20,000 in the last 18 months. A friend of mine was in the same position. His wife had a tumour behind her ear.
Yeah.
15 weeks waiting for it because it hasn't got through to the brain yet. And he said, yes, but the scan shows that it's eating its way through.
Right.
Well, 15 weeks. So he had to pay 10 grand to get it done privately.
Wow. And I think you're right. Loads of people are doing that because they just can't risk their lives, because that's what you're doing. I mean, you're risking your life because these people can't organise, their own administration. It's a shocking state of affairs. David, listen, I hope you get it sorted out. Thank you so much for calling. I mean, it is incredible, isn't it? He can't get an appointment. He can't get anybody to help him. He suddenly decides to walk into the dermatology department. They go, oh, yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. So there's clearly space in the system, but the people organising it don't know what they're doing. And so for Pat McFadden and others from the Cabinet and from the Labour government to lie, barefaced lie about the fact that the NHS is improving is a shocking, shocking way to behave. And I think they should be absolutely held up. And when he spoke to Laura Kunsberg yesterday, I was literally kicking the carpet, kicking the pillar, kicking everything I could kick, because she didn't question him on it. She just listened to him saying, oh, yeah, well, we've got NHS waiting list is coming down for the 6th month in a row. Absolute cobblers. And she didn't even quiz him on it. She didn't even question him. She just nodded like a dog. Let's get a voice note from Rob.
Morning, Mike. Great show as always. Rob from Dorset here. I'm a landlord, mate. Recently got 2 properties back. Advertised them on Gumtree, £1,100 a month in the south of England. I get replies from all sorts of people and numerous agencies, one being the housing group, who offered me on an £1,100 property £1,250 I said no. $13.50, I said no. $14.50 a month, again, I said no. I asked them who they were and who was going to be in the property. They said they're working for local authorities, the government and the Home Office, and they will be housing immigrants in my property. I told them to stick it, mate. They ain't having them.
Rob, well, listen, good for you, but I bet you there'll be plenty of people who will not do that, which will mean that your property will be taken over by immigrants. And who knows? You'll make plenty of money, but what you'll be left with at the end of it and what the street will end up like, again, difficult to say. Rob, thanks very much indeed for that. So many people have got so much great information. If only the government were listening to this show. I know there will be people in there who do, but they would get such an insight into actually what ordinary people in this country feel like, because it's the only place you can hear them. Sean in Gloucester says this morning, Mike, I'm absolutely furious again with this flip-flopping, lying Labour government. They're introducing regulations that will drive private landlords out of the market, but now they want them to house illegal immigrants. What planet are they on? I know, absolutely right. They're so hypocritical, isn't it? One from Nikita, who says, a friend of mine is an HGV driver on the Calais to Dover boat this morning, and he was watching the French customs ship guide a migrant's boat across the channel to Dover. Yeah, I think we know that. And Paul in West Yorkshire says, the shifting of appointments in the NHS is happening to me. I'm on a physiotherapy course, but every time I get another appointment, it's classed as a new appointment, despite it being a continual course. I can see what they're doing. They are absolutely lying, manipulating the figures, manipulating the waiting lists, and it's shameful. Don't believe a word. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Here's one from Alan in Middlesbrough. Morning, Mike. I've just tried to make a hospital appointment where the OnlyFans nurse works. The hospital said there's now a waiting list to join the waiting list. Yeah, I'm sure you did. One from Gary, who says, Mike, I'm currently in Malaysia. I got so fed up with the UK that we decided to get out for a while. I have a medical issue and have organised to see a surgeon tomorrow. All sorted out via WhatsApp. Thank you, Malaysia. Unbelievable what people are doing just to get themselves well again. Regarding the NHS waiting list fiasco, says Tony in Sheffield, the government are playing a we're too clever for you semantic game, but instead we see straight through them. Instead of saying that the waiting lists are going down, we want to know how many patients have been treated and completed. Exactly right. you know exactly what's going on. Let's talk to James Esses now, though, psychotherapist and founder of Just Therapy, because the reverberations from almost 2 weeks ago now, since the Supreme Court handed down the ruling that trans women are not women, are still going on. Let's have a look just before we talk to James. Carla Denyer, the co-leader of the Green Party, talking on the BBC yesterday, she doesn't believe a word of it.
The EHRC guidance seems to be saying that if a lesbian association or venue wants to include trans women, and let's bear in mind that lesbian women, non-trans lesbian women are amongst the most supportive of trans people in the whole of society, the advice, seems to say that they won't be allowed to.
So would you like the guidance to be withdrawn, and then we'll...
Yes, exactly. The Greens are calling for the guidance to be withdrawn. It's clearly rushed and ill thought out, and they haven't consulted all the people who'd be affected.
OK.
We're saying withdraw it. Think again, consult everyone who'd be affected by this guidance, and then come out with something more thought out.
OK.
You can't really get guidance which goes against the law, surely, can you? James, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
I mean, even Keir Starmer, the world's most obtuse man, came out last week and said that finally, after 6 days, we now have clarity and we can now move forward, in his words, and treat everybody equally with dignity, blah, 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 etc. You know, the Greens don't seem to agree. Ed Davey doesn't agree either. Surely once the Supreme Court says this is what the law is, you can't really go against it, can you?
It was wonderful, wasn't it? After years of saying that women can have a penis, all it took was a little piece of paper with a judgment written on it for Keir Starmer to be convinced. I mean, look, we've seen a variety of responses to the Supreme Court judgment from politicians. You've got the bunch like Bridget Phillipson, etc., who have said, oh, this is what we thought all along.
Yeah.
Of course, we've got the receipts to prove otherwise.
Yeah, more lies, yeah.
Correct. You've got some like Keir Starmer kind of pretending and feigning, you know, interest and admiration for the decision. And then you've got others like Carla Denyer, etc., and some unsavoury characters in Labour like Nadia Whittome, etc., who are basically coming out all guns blazing, accusing, it seems, the Supreme Court justices of being bigots and fascists. Such like, and completely and utterly rejecting it. At the end of the day, this is the highest court in our land, and if it says it's the law, it's the law.
Yeah, and is it funny that up until this moment, everybody who was on the left side of politics thought that the Supreme Court was the greatest thing since sliced bread, because everything they did was kind of, in their words, anti-Tory. And suddenly now they've come up with something they don't like. Suddenly they're all bigots.
Well, quite right. Jolyon Morm of the Good Law Project, he's in my books the patron saint of lost causes.
Yeah,
I can't remember that.
I prefer to call him as my pet name for him is Jolyon Moron.
When we think...
That's quite a good one, actually. I think I'll bank that. He's come out attacking the Supreme Court justices. In fact, he's trying to organise a crowdfund to try and take them up to potentially the European Court of Human Rights. But there's previous tweets that he put out a few years ago on Brexit where he made a point of saying, under no circumstances can we question Supreme Court judgments if they say it's the law. So, you know, it's complete and utter duplicity. It's one rule for one and another for another.
Absolutely right. What do you make of this this story in the Telegraph today as well, which I wanted to ask you about, where they're saying they want to test all trans children for autism? I mean, I've never seen that connection made before. Why are they making it?
They're making it, Mike, because of the data that we do have, the limited data. Significant proportion of children presenting at gender clinics, both in the UK and abroad, have autism. I work with a number of quote-unquote trans-identified young people. Again, the majority of them have autism. There's a clear connection. And there's a multitude of reasons for this, including the fact that people with autism often take things very literally and I think can be more, unfortunately, vulnerable to indoctrination from those who tell you that this is what a man is and this is what a woman is and it's possible born and trapped in the wrong body. So there is a clear correlation between gender dysphoria and autism, and indeed other mental health conditions and presentation. So I was actually very pleased to see this.
So, I mean, is that because more children are being identified as possibly suffering from autism, or is something else going on?
Well, that raises an interesting question, and certainly we have seen an increase in pathologisation and diagnosing of young people with all sorts of conditions, which I do have some concerns about. But as I say, most of the children presenting in gender clinics do appear to sit somewhere on the autistic spectrum.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important that we're considering these other comorbidities when it comes to gender dysphoria. Rather than viewing it as the thing itself, we should be viewing it as symptomatic of some wider problem, issue, condition in a young person's life.
Sure, I see what you're saying. James, good to talk to you. We're a bit rushed this morning, so I'm sorry I'm going to have to leave it there. James Essie's there, psychotherapist and founder of Just Therapy. Interesting that so many young people who identify as trans are actually suffering from autism as well. Let's get a voice note from Lisa.
Morning, Mike. Great show. As usual, Lisa from Leeds here. Just ringing in about the illegal immigrants and the hotel scam. So one of my friends set up a business and is doing quite well out of this little scam. So what they do is they rent properties and they sublet them back to the council, and they put in multiple occupancies. So say, for instance, you've got 3 rooms in a terraced house. They rent it to the council for 3 times the illegal, so they'll be making a return of, say, £3,000 a month, and the rent they'll be paying about £1,200. They've also got all the maintenance and everything covered in with that price, so it's an absolute goldmine scam that we're obviously paying for.
Amazing. So you can just rent a place and then sublet it out to the council. That seems like it shouldn't be allowed, doesn't it? Incredible. Dr. Renee's been in touch. She says, morning, I don't know, I don't understand how reducing no-show appointments improves elective surgery. There is no logic at all to this statement. She's talking about the NHS, of course. Yeah, I know. We'll keep talking about that. We'll keep taking the calls. Coming next, though, we're going to talk about what's going on in Gaza, because there's been some claims which have been completely and utterly debunked. Those were the Hamas claims, of course, about the numbers of people killed. This is Talk.
This is no special pleading of MPs. After all, we've had 2 MPs in recent years actually killed, and many of my female colleagues, particularly female, I regret to say, have had vile trolling online, and many of them death threats as well. So if we want MPs to do the job, I think it's up to the state to provide proper protection. And indeed, we do get a lot of advice on security matters.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 8:52. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. It is Monday. It's April the 28th. It's the last week of April. Coming up, it's going to be May. The weather's going to be amazing. It's going to be hot this week. It's going to be scorchio. Adam in Chester says, very interesting to hear that Rob and his property rental advertised for $11.50 got offered $14.50 by government agents. Rachel Reeves tackling inflation again. Yeah, you can say that again. Absolutely right. Let's talk now, though, to Louis Stone, Honorary Professor of Law at the University of Wollongong in Australia, because, of course, there's a report out of which Professor Stone was an author, which says basically that an awful lot of the figures that you see coming out of the Middle East, coming out of Gaza, about casualties, about the numbers of people killed by the IDF, are demonstrably false, which will come as no surprise to those of you who listen to this show. But let's find out what it's all about. Louis, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. Basically, you found some inconsistencies between hospital records and statistics from the Gaza Ministry of Health. I mean, we should probably not call it the Gaza Ministry of Health. We should call it the Hamas Ministry of Health, shouldn't we?
Correct. They're run by Hamas. Hamas is the government.
Yes, exactly right. So basically, Hamas have claimed in the past that 70% of the people who have been killed in Gaza are women and children, and that's the part that you've found is not correct.
Yes, let me address that. Firstly, I'm the mathematician of the two authors. Greg is a lawyer.
Yeah.
So it's really sad. These horrific accounts of deaths in the media in Gaza are unbearable to read about and to watch. But however, there's also an information war. And when the distorted accounts and exaggerations of numbers start appearing, and they're spun for the media, and when they're in contradiction to the actual data, that's where I get really triggered.
Right.
Because science and maths is being used to sanitize the evidence.
Okay.
Now, coming to the 70%, firstly, let me point out that just 2 years ago in the UN, there was a whole huge session and workshop based on the theme that 90% of wartime casualties are civilians. So it's just part of war that civilians are going to cop it. So the worst situation I know was the 1945 air bombing of Tokyo, where the US killed 100,000 citizens in 2 hours, one night.
Yeah.
Just from bombing. So has the situation in Gaza come anywhere close to these levels? No way, far from it. Are 70% of casualties women and children? No, what we find is that that's probably at least a 5 times exaggeration in key battlefronts in Gaza.
Yeah.
So before I give details, just step back and consider the urban warfare that goes on in Gaza. The Hamas operates, as you know, it operates and hides underground in 350 to 450 miles of tunnels for their protection. Above the tunnels is the population of Gaza. So when the IDF, the Israel Defense Force, tries to attack Hamas, the whole Gazan population is protecting Hamas combatants. So it has to sacrifice Hamas knows it's sacrificing its citizens in this tunnel warfare. Hamas places major entrances at hospitals, schools, and it doesn't take much to figure out who could easily be the victims if Israel attacks.
So as far as your study is concerned, you know, yes, there have been some casualties, and yes, there are clearly bits of evidence for that. But what makes you come to the conclusion that many of the dead are actually not women and children, but rather Hamas operatives?
Well, firstly, I interviewed a number of soldiers, ground forces in Khan Yunis. They were operating there, and when you tell them 70% of the deaths are women and children, they can't believe it. Right. They think that's like science fiction, out of this world. So I went to look in the data just to see what I could find. And I took Khan Yunis because these were the people that I was interviewing. And I can show you this graph maybe.
Yeah.
You see that? So the blue is men, the red is the women.
Right.
And on this side here, the left-hand side, there's the children. So it's age on the bottom. Anyhow, so there's
so very small numbers, in other words.
34% women and children were killed in over 4 months in Khan Yunis.
Right.
34% compared to the 70%. You think that's 70% is twice as bad? No. 30 to 70 is actually 5 times worse than 70 to 30.
Yeah.
If you can think of it like that.
Okay.
So it's a very severe difference.
Yeah.
So we were finding these sorts of examples everywhere. So what the truth is that the IDF soldiers are under strict orders, at least the ground troops are under strict orders not to target women and children.
Yeah.
And that comes up everywhere in the data.
And that's very clear, but also it's also very clear that that unfortunately Hamas, being a terrorist organisation, are going to tell lies and try to get as much sympathy for their cause as possible. Louis, listen, we've got to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Louis Stone, Honorary Professor of Law at the University of Wollongong in Australia. Well, who would have thought that Hamas are actually trying to turn what is going on in their part of the world somehow to their advantage? Steve from Cambridge says this. Morning, Mike. When will the government realise that the only way the NHS will improve is to clean out the management from the top down? Absolutely. Rick in Portsmouth, I don't know if you can tell me your story in about 30 seconds. Have a go. If not, we'll talk to you in the next hour. Hello. Hello, Rick. No?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi, yeah.
Yeah, basically, I've been researching myself. I've got something called a cervical dystonia, which is I need botulinum toxin put in my neck.
Right.
I got the appointment in the same letter saying that my appointment was 2026. It's now been put back to 27.
Right.
And in the same letter, I got a cancellation.
What?
I've been cancelled.
So you've been cancelled, what, for 3 years hence? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes.
You've been cancelled 3 years ahead of time. That's madness, isn't it? Crikey.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Rick, thanks very much indeed. Incredible stuff. Rick from Portsmouth. So many stories about the NHS and the lies that the Labour Party are telling about it. Absolutely ridiculous. I can tell you that we'll be taking more of your calls in the next hour. We'll also be hearing more of your stories, and also we'll find out what on earth is going on inside of this government, because nobody seems to have a clue what they're doing. Chris Philp's going to be here. Isabel Oakeshott will join us as well. You might remember that she was on the air with us not long ago, talking about a dreadful piece of video of some scumbag migrants who were living on a roundabout underneath Westway in West London. Well, you might be surprised to know that after we did our show, suddenly the police went and cleared them all away. Just shows the power of Morning Glory. We'll talk about that, plus much else besides as well, of course, because every single day here at the People's Voice, which is what I call it here at Morning Glory, we get more and more done. We're going to try and get a victory for the taxi drivers, a victory for those people living near the migrants. Much, much more to talk about. This is Morning Glory. We'll be back after this. Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week, the one show where you do not have to be worried about judgmental people, because we'll do all the judging for you. Let's just have a look at how Humsley Useless is now spending his time.
There goes your career, mate.
Over there a bit is over towards where all the migrants come in. He's jumping there. There he goes. He goes over the bar.
Hello,
and
lady.
unfortunately, it catches on his Johnson.
If he's Plank of the Week, he's got a sizable tank.
That's a whole different show.
Plank of the Week, Fridays at 7 on Talk.
Hi, I'm Kevin O'Sullivan, and I've got a message for you. Welcome back to this blockbuster edition of What Just Happened. It really is a good one, I think. It's so funny that people keep calling me Meghan Markle, because it's Meghan Sussex now.
Flynn has said, Samara, I agree with you all the time, but you're just boring.
I refuse to work.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 4 minutes past 9. I'm Mike Graham. Of course, we are here for another hour. Julie Hartley-Brewer will be along at 10. Lots and lots of things to talk about. No way back, Andy, is what it says on the front page of The Sun this morning. Andrew, of course, having appeared Easter at the church commemorations there, has thought that his comeback dreams are delusional, it says on the front page, after the death of his sex abuse accuser, Virginie. He remained silent on her suicide yesterday, but a source said the door to a return is firmly closed. Front page of the Daily Telegraph this morning has got the Prime Minister's plans to make migrant cuts after the election on Thursday, because apparently he thinks that is going to beat reform if he makes a promise that he may or may not keep. More important, I suppose, for the Exchequer coming up is that Rachel Reeves is facing a pay demand from teachers and nurses who want 4%. Of course they do. They're in the public sector. And from the Daily Mail, so much for a bonfire of the Quangos. Figures show at least 350 bosses earn more than the Prime Minister. 1,500 people in public bodies take home over £100,000. Also, we've been talking this morning about the NHS and how ridiculous it is that the government keeps trying to claim that waiting lists are coming down. We know they're not. And what about those migrant houses that the government is now offering through Serco to landlords? Let's get a voice note from B.
Mark, it's Bee from the West Midlands. I'd just like to ask, when they come over and destroy their documents, who actually gives them new identities like passports, driving licences, etc.? Is there a new name department, new identity department somewhere?
Well, it's a very good question. I mean, the answer is that if they chuck their passports in the sea, they chuck their phones in the sea, don't worry about it, because they get welcomed into the country no matter what, and they get given somewhere to stay, and they get given a new phone. They might not get a new passport, but, you know, that's something else that will come up. Chris Phelps going to join us very shortly. Isabel Oakeshot's here as well. Morning, Mike, says Brad in Cambridge. There is a court which is higher than the Supreme Court. It's called Mother Nature, and she judged that biology rules. Only women are women. That's another story that is still rumbling on because, of course, the Green Party and the Lib Dems in particular can't accept the fact that trans women are not women, and they want to change the guidance coming out from the Equality and Human Rights Commission. Absolute and utter madness. Meanwhile, also in the NHS today, it turns out there's a nurse who's operating an OnlyFans account, not just from her home, but from inside the hospital in East London where she works. Unbelievable stuff. It's like Carry On Nursing, for heaven's sake. No wonder you can't get an appointment. 0344 499 1000 is the number. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Welcome to the final hour of the show. It is Monday, the 28th of April. Coming up very soon, it's going to be a very hot day. It's going to be a very hot week. It's going to be, according to the Daily Star, Blowtorch UK. You know, look out for the wildfire warnings and the hosepipe bans, because that will be next. Let's go down to Westminster, though. Chris Phelps is there, MP and Shadow Home Secretary, of course. Very good to talk to you, Chris. Very good morning to you. I wanted to start off with not so much the immigration story today, but more the striking story, or the potential striking story. Rachel Reeves facing pay demands on the front page of the Times today for teachers and nurses. I mean, I've said that this will probably be a sort of merry-go-round of public sector pay disputes, which is going to go on for the entire life of the Labour government. We haven't got any money, have we?
Good morning, Mike. Well, that's right, we haven't. I mean, Labour already last summer gave massive inflation-busting pay rises to their trade union overlords without any sort of performance improvement in return, including that massive 10 grand pay rise for train drivers who already earn 60 or 70 odd thousand pounds a year, in some cases for a 4-day week. So they've already given out loads of extra money. And of course, we've then had to pay for that in the form of higher taxes. You know, for example, business rates going up for small businesses, or employers' national insurance, which ends up getting passed on to workers in the form of lower wages. Labour and Starmer lied during the election campaign when they promised there were going to be no extra taxes. There are loads of extra taxes to fund all these massive pay rises, amongst other things, and that's before you even get to the possibility of further inflation-busting pay rises in the future, which only get paid for one way. They get paid for by everyone else coughing up higher taxes, and there is no question Labour have already lied before the election by saying there weren't any tax increases. And to make all of that even worse, Labour are also ramming a new law through Parliament that basically undoes all of the laws that Margaret Thatcher passed in the 1980s, making it harder to go on strike. So now, with this new law, Angela Rayner's new law passes, it'll be much easier for militant trade unions to go on strike.
Yeah.
It'll make it much harder for employers in the public and private sector to resist that. So we're going to see a load more strikes as well as a result of Labour's legislation.
Yes, I'm afraid it's not looking good, is it? On the front page of the Mail today, they've got a story about the Quangos. And I mean, I must admit, whenever anybody talks about a bonfire of the Quangos, they always seem to sort of increase by a factor of 10. And I think you guys had problems with them as well. But for Labour, at least 350 bosses earn more than the Prime Minister. Hundreds of fat cat public officials still employed by public bodies, somehow taking home over £100,000 a year. I mean, we don't need most of these bodies, do we? I mean, most of them don't seem to do very much.
Well, I would agree with that, and I think Labour, according to the Mail report, have created, I think is it 37
yes.
Or 27 new quangos since the election, all of which are going to cost a load of money, which we are going to have to pay for in the form of higher taxes. Again, Labour lied during the election about not increasing our taxes. And there are two problems with these quangos. One is the financial problem that you've referred to. They cost a whole load of money, which has to be funded by our taxes. But the second problem is more of a constitutional one, in the sense that very often these quangos take decisions that frankly should be taken by democratically elected government ministers and by the democratically elected parliament. And by setting up all these quangos and giving them power, not only does that cost a fortune, but it also is not democratically accountable. And we elect, political parties stand on a manifesto, make promises, get elected, and then sometimes it turns out they can't deliver those promises because the quango has the power instead. So I think that's also fundamentally undemocratic, in addition to costing a load of money.
Big week coming up for you guys, not just in the Conservative Party, but in Parliament in general. Up and down the country, local elections taking place. I guess the question for the Conservatives is, will this be a disaster? How bad of a disaster will it be? And what kind of preparations are you putting in place to explain away what will happen if you get slaughtered?
Well, the first point to make is that last time these seats were contested 4 years ago in 2021, we did unbelievably well. I think it was on the back of the vaccine rollout that was very successful, and we won something like 2/3 of the seats being contested. So, frankly, under any circumstances, repeating that kind of unbelievably good result would be very, very difficult indeed. So, if you compare the results on Thursday to what we achieved 4 years ago, it is going to be tough because the results 4 years ago were off the scale good. Now, look, we do have a message for the public, which is that Conservative-run councils up and down the country, all the analysis shows, deliver lower council tax and better services than Labour or Lib Dem-run councils. We've seen, for example, in Birmingham, that terrible bankrupt Labour council not even collecting the rubbish piling up on the streets. Conservative councils, by contrast, are much better run financially, lower council tax, potholes get fixed quicker, the rubbish gets collected more effectively. In the borough that I represent in Parliament, Croydon, just a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, when Labour controlled it, they spectacularly bankrupted Croydon. And the Conservative Mayor, Jason Perry, is now having to fix that. So what we're saying to the public is, as you go to the ballot box on Thursday, just keep in mind the Conservative councils deliver lower council tax and better services, and a vote for reform very often risks letting in Labour or the Lib Dems. We saw that sadly in the general election last year, when a few people who were ordinarily might be conservative-minded voted reform, and it handed Keir Starmer that landslide. So a vote for reform risks letting in Labour or the Lib Dems, and I don't think anybody wants that.
OK, thank you very much indeed. Chris Philp there, Shadow Home Secretary, MP, of course, for the Conservative Party. We've heard from Pat McFadden this morning, Ed Davey as well, and Richard Tice. They've all been on the show this morning. Big week coming up. Thursday, of course, is the massive local elections, but also, even more importantly, really, for the government, is the Runcorn by-election. Mike Amesbury, the former Labour MP, of course, had to set himself aside, and that election is now up for grabs, and that seat is now up for grabs. We'll talk to Isabel Oakeshott in a second. Let me read you this on the NHS front. Barrow in Furness is Becky. She says, I had to wait for 2 years to get a lump removed from my back. In that time, I had 3 appointments cancelled, and when I did finally get the surgery, it had more than trebled in size. The NHS is not fit for purpose. And one from Jan who says, here's another point. They don't always make you a follow-up outpatient appointment, even though the doctors say you need one. So you have to keep phoning the secretary. Absolutely right. And Anthony in Suffolk. Morning, Mike. I've had 2 appointments with consultants in the past 6 weeks. The grand total of both appointments was less than 4 minutes. Nothing done other than pushing me off to further appointments. Could this be padding appointment numbers? I think there's no question. And we've definitely got the Labour government on this. They are totally and utterly disingenuous, and they are lying to the public, particularly when people like Pat McFadden come out on the BBC and say waiting lists have fallen for the 6th month in a row. Absolutely untrue. Complete and utter gaslighting. Let's talk to Isabel Oakeshott. Oh, for a quick voice note first from Chris on the TFL.
Hi, Mike. Chris from Upminster here. Just how incompetent the TFL are. February last year, I applied for a licence to do minicabbing. It took them 7 months to ask me to do a medical test. That's fine. I replied pretty much immediately. Took 2 months for them to reply back. That was in December. And then they asked me to do asked me for more medical information about a thing I haven't got. Bearing in mind, on day 1 in February, they had all my medical information. So I wrote back saying I haven't got this medical condition, and I'm still waiting. They've had my money since February last year. I've pretty much given up trying to get this done, but hey ho, that's what you get for trying to find work yourself these days. Anyway, good show. Speak to you soon.
Chris, thank you very much indeed. Absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? What is wrong with Britain? Why does nothing work? Isabel Oakeshott's here. Isabel works. Hello. Good morning.
Dear, oh dear. Yeah, we were at talk. We never stop, do we? I'm loving some of the stories that we're getting in this morning. I mean, particular shout out to the landlord who is on a point of principle, absolutely refusing to let his property to the local authority, in other words, via them to asylum seekers. I think people have got to try and take a stand against this, because the more people that are making money out of this racket, the harder it is going to be to dismantle. And, you know, the supply of housing is a limited thing at this point. Even Angela Rayner privately seems to admit, reportedly, that there's no way the government can build anywhere near the amount of new houses it's promising. Right. So landlords are busily making a pretty penny letting out their properties to asylum seekers. Where does that leave the British taxpayer that needs housing as well?
Right. Because, I mean, looking down that list of places where they're looking to make houses available, I mean, it's incredibly extensive. I mean, Richard Tice was on earlier saying that both Skegness and another town in his constituency are up on the list. And there are so many of those towns that people that follow this show and who listen to this show are on. People were getting in touch with me over the weekend saying, my town's in there. I don't know where they're going to put these people. You know, our town is relatively nice and, you know, secure and safe. And, you know, suddenly if you put an influx of hundreds of these asylum seekers in, what's it going to do? How is it going to change? It's going to change it dramatically.
Well, I see that the word that Serco are using is, and that's the contractor that seems to be taking responsibility or taking it upon themselves to try to secure private accommodation for asylum seekers. The word they're using is dispersal. What does that mean? It means let's spread asylum seekers all over the country. They're already pretty much spread over most of our industrial towns anyway. But I notice on that list of places like Rutland. I mean, Rutland's quite posh as far as I remember it. I haven't been there for a long time, but that neck of the woods is not going to be well adapted to accommodating a load of asylum seekers. No. I think there'll be, all this is going to do is increase community tensions, which are pretty close to boiling over anyway. We saw at the weekend, there was a protest, wasn't there, down in Dover? A bunch of people peacefully actually went down there to say, stop the boat. You can't actually, it's not as if we can actually send our own kind of civilian army to stop the boats or navy, because they're stopped midway across the channel anyway and brought safely over. But this is going to explode at some point. You cannot keep importing unknown people who are disruptive to the local community and not expect there to be trouble. I'm not saying I want there to be trouble. What I want is the flow of people to stop, because it is for our country.
Well, because also you can now see, and this is what happens over time, it starts small. I remember, it was not that long ago, if you remember, Isabel, when the lefties used to say to us, what are you getting so upset about? It's such a small number of people coming, it's not really, it's pretty much negligible. What influence does it have on your life? But whereas now, it's not like that anymore. We're about to enter a very warm week. There's probably, I'm betting that it won't be long before we have 1,000 people coming in one single day. We've already had 700. And suddenly that could be a couple of thousand in a week. Suddenly it's gone from being, 30,000 a year possibly to 60,000 a year, and you can see it everywhere you go. Every street I walk down in London, I can see what's happening to it. Every time I go to the South Coast, I see it changing literally before my eyes. It's happening in almost every part of Britain now, and people are getting sick to the back teeth of it. And you're right, people are getting fed up, and they're going to find some way of registering that.
Well, and completely understandably, because people feel very disempowered to stop this. They did make a mistake. All of those who voted Labour made a mistake thinking that a Labour government was going to do something serious about this. But let's set that to the side now. The overwhelming majority of public opinion wants this to stop. And as you say, you see it everywhere. You can actually kind of tell who's an illegal immigrant, who's an asylum seeker. They're not allowed to work in theory. Right. So either they're working on the black market or they're hanging around looking very much like an asylum seeker. How do you know this? Because poor things, they don't have much. They've basically come over in the clothes that they're wearing. And there is a certain look about it. It's a downtrodden look. It's a I've just arrived look. It's not good for them to be kept months, possibly years, at taxpayers' expense, not being able to work, and then inevitably then being allowed to move into other publicly funded accommodation from where, what kind of job are they going to get? These are not people who have, in general, and have the kind of skills that we need to actually fill in the UK. So we are importing a massive problem, all the while exporting talent. It's completely bonkers.
It really is. And as you've just heard about TfL or any other, organisation you care to mention, the NHS we were talking about today, and the kind of complete and utter lies that are being spouted by members of the government about how, we're beginning to see signs of improvement in the NHS. No, you're not. Nothing works in this country, I'm afraid, and it's the fault of the people that run it.
Well, I was shocked by the caller who said that they had an operation scheduled for something like 2027. Yeah. And honestly, that is so disgraceful, isn't it? I cannot think of any other developed country in which that would happen. I know quite a lot about this subject, having researched different health systems, comparable countries in big economies. And, if you told someone in France that if they had something wrong with them, they might be offered an operation in 2027, but it might be cancelled as well, they would just be absolutely astonished. Australia, Germany, none of these countries have health systems that suggest it might be okay to have an operation in a couple of years' time. Right. It's laughable, except it's not laughable because people are literally dying. And by the way, that's another way you keep NHS waiting lists down. You keep people waiting so long, that they actually die.
Yeah. And certainly there is plenty of evidence that people are saying to me that, you know, they're waiting weeks and weeks and months for treatment for cancer, and everybody knows that the longer you wait, the worse it gets. I mean, it's incredible, isn't it?
Well, there are supposed to be very clear waiting parameters for cancer, but there are so many different stages, particularly the early points of diagnostics for cancer, whether it's the scans that you need, and you often need a whole array of scans, and then appointments with consultants where you decide what is the appropriate course of treatment. And if delays are baked into each stage of that journey, it can be months before people are actually getting from where they've discovered a lump or a bump or some, you know, screen detected something, to actually starting, whether it's chemotherapy or radiotherapy or whatever it is they need, or surgery. And, you know, our outcomes on this speak for themselves. You know, this is not you and I, Mike, or our listeners being party political. Just look at the outcomes relative to other developed countries. And our cancer outcomes, I'm afraid, are not good at all. And a lot of that is down to delays in diagnosis. And we're still experiencing a hangover from the total capitulation of the NHS to COVID as well at this point.
Yeah, absolutely right. I'm just going to finish up with one thing which you might not have expected me to ask you, but it's an astonishing story for me. Front page of the I newspaper, which is not normally something I pay an awful lot of attention to. But they've got a remarkable story this morning where apparently Britain's biggest defence companies are basically advising their staff that if they have Chinese-built electric vehicles, they should not connect their mobile phones to them to charge them in case they're giving away secrets. Don't charge your phone in a Chinese electric car. I mean, you know, why are we allowing these things to be sold in this country if that's what the fear is?
Well, credit to the defence companies for being on that, and that not being the next scandal to come. But doesn't that show you just how all over everything the Chinese are? You know, we have been successive ministers in positions of power that could have done something about this, have been so woefully naive as to think the Chinese aren't brilliant at this stuff and don't have an agenda to steal what they can. You know, this is nothing new. The Chinese are extremely adept at stealing our trade secrets, you know, our intellectual property. And at some point, that may become malign.
Yes, I think that's really the worry, isn't it? That is definitely a problem. Isabel, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Isabel Oakeshott Talks international editor. Remarkable story, by the way. If you've got a Chinese-made electric vehicle, apparently, according to defence companies in this country, you should be very careful what you plug it into. I mean, that's just mind-boggling, isn't it? Let's get a voice note from Graham.
Good morning, Mike. Graham from Birmingham. Do you know, I listen to you every day, and I can't believe what I'm hearing. I can't believe what this government is doing to us. I'm getting to the point where I can't take anymore. It's driving me mad.
People say that about me, particularly my ex. No, I'm not going to say that. But listen, I know you can't take it anymore, but you've got to believe. You've got to stay with us on this. You've got to keep taking it, because eventually you will turn it around into something positive, because you will think of a way of fixing it. You will, I promise you. 26 minutes past 9. Sarah says in Wrexham, I had a bone scan last week and was told I'll get the results in 14 weeks' time. Crikey. That's ridiculous. Regarding the migrant rental advert from Serco, says Dee, why don't they want them in Greater London areas? It's going to be taking up cheaper rentals from the locals in the east of England, the beautiful popular tourist destinations in mid and north of England, again taking the cheaper rentals from the locals. Well, yeah, I imagine that's probably true. It's probably because they can't perhaps convince landlords in London to give up the homes because, one, London is already massively overcrowded, and two, it's probably too expensive. Warren in Bracknell says this, nice weather is always a double-edged sword, great for working outside, however it always means 700 to 1,000 new illegal undocumented immigrants flooding into our country. Well, I'm going to make a prediction, and I'm going to make it right now. I think that within, I would say, the next 3 to 4 weeks, we will see a one-day incursion into this country of more than 1,000 immigrants in one day. So far, the record's just over 700. I reckon it's going to go up to over 1,000, and I'll give you until the end of May for that to happen, possibly even before that. It's 9:27. thing is with testicular cancer, if it's caught early, it's very easy to cure it. But if you catch it too late, it's a very quick spreader, and then you can't be done as you know. So it's definitely something that is definitely worth catching early because it's life-saving, isn't it?
Absolutely. You guys sound like you're well versed, but yeah, hot bath or shower, checks for lumps, pain, swelling, hardness, heaviness, anything not normal.
Pain, any pain in there.
Absolutely, go straight to the doctors. So 96% curable if caught early, but unfortunately we lose about 60 guys a year.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:31. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until, of course, at 10 o'clock, about another half an hour, or slightly less, actually. Joanna from Salisbury says, Mike, 2 comments. How do the migrants that don't speak English take driving tests when you have to take a theory test first? Well, they probably don't bother. And Clara Denya, the Supreme Court didn't take long enough to think about the ruling. They took 5 years. For heaven's sake. And on the migrant housing front, says David, any scrupulous landlord would be worried about the damage these migrants would do to their property. Irrespective of what Serco says, the property will never be the same again. So only those that don't care about their property or the surrounding areas would entertain this. Well, no, they might see it as an opportunity, though, because if the property is damaged in some way, no doubt Serco, i.e. you and I, would pay for the damage. Let's get a voice note from Chris on migrants.
Morning, Mike. It's Chris from Devon. The thing we've got to understand is that these people coming across from France, as soon as they leave the French waters, as far as we're concerned, they're French citizens. So what we do is we just return them. They're French citizens. They've come from France. They're classed as French citizens. That's all we've got to do. Cheers, Mike. Bye.
Yeah, well, if only they were. That would be one thing. Let's talk to LaDonna Harvey from the Arizona Morning News at KTAR in Phoenix, Arizona. Of course. LaDonna, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Well, I mean, it's been quite a week, hasn't it? I mean, we're approaching 100 days of the Donald Trump presidency. I was reading a piece about El Paso over the weekend and how it's gone from being this kind of burgeoning, overrun with migrants town to kind of, you know, a ghost town because they've all disappeared and very few people now coming in. It's gone from something like 8,000 a day to 8,000 a month, which is something, given what our problems are. But imagine the scene in the Vatican where Donald Trump flies over to Rome and suddenly finds himself sitting on a chair, as somebody said, the most intense game of rock, paper, scissors that anybody's ever seen, sitting next to Volodymyr Zelensky, which apparently went very well.
Apparently it did. So, you know, this is the thing about this president. He runs very hot and he runs very cold. And the way that he described that meeting, he said that he thought Zelensky was calmer, and I'm air quoting that, yes. During this particular meeting. At the same time, you know, Russia did a very ill-conceived bombing run on Kyiv and hit, you know, a bunch of civilian areas. I think there were 9 civilian deaths, 7 or 9. I can't remember which. But at the, you know, and this is when this president is thinking that he's going to be able to come up with some kind of deal to stop this war. So now he's mad at Putin and he's not mad at Zelensky, and he's hoping to see some sort of peace move forward. But I don't know that Vladimir Putin is willing or able to do so.
Right. I mean, as ever, I always say wait and see, because that seems to be the only real way, sensible way to treat the Donald Trump presidency right now. Because after 100 days, people are starting to kind of, you know, I guess bed in with the fact that, you know, this is going to be going on for 4 years and it's going to be one heck of a ride, and you never really know from one day to the next what he's going to say or do.
No, you don't. And, you know, if you didn't know that after the first round, then where were you? You know, France? Were you somewhere in the Himalayas? Because his first presidency was also marked by this kind of back and forth where he, you know, seemingly shifting with his moods. Right. he decides, I'm mad at this person, I'm mad at that person, I'm no longer mad at them, I maybe want to be their friend, and oh wait, there's that guy over here, maybe we should be talking to him.
I mean, it didn't seem quite so random as it does now, though. Does it? Did it? Maybe I wasn't paying attention.
It did, but 4 years will buffer you from that.
Right. I suppose.
And we had 4 years
have a look.
Biden who did nothing.
Yeah, let's have a look at what he said last night when he was back home in DC about the Ukraine war.
They're losing a lot of people. We have 3,000-4,000 people dying every single week. That's a lot of people to lose. You can imagine parents waving from Ukraine and from Russia, waving to their son as he leaves, and a week later he's dead on a battlefield, all carved up and chopped up. I've seen it. I see the satellite pictures. They're horrible. They're horrible. I would say it can't get any worse. Body parts laying all over. I don't even like looking at them. Body parts laying all over fields. What are they doing? It would have never started if I were president.
I mean, there's just nobody like him, really, is there? I mean, nobody else would describe it like that.
No, absolutely not. I mean, he blames Joe Biden for the start of the war.
Yeah.
I would say, maybe look at the guy who took the first move, Putin. But, would it have happened under his watch?
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to, nobody can really answer that.
Right.
Is he that strong a president that he could have kept a leash on Putin?
I know. It's hard to imagine. But I mean, I'm still of the opinion that he will get some kind of peace deal. I mean, he's himself now saying that Crimea is sort of, lost forever. But it may not be something that you can sign away to Russia. But it will just be. I mean, even commentators here are beginning and defence experts here are beginning to understand that, maybe since nothing happened in 2014 when Russia invaded it, that we're just going to have to accept that that's where they're going to be.
Well, and, then you have to ask yourself, where else does Putin want to go? Because he wants the USSR back together.
Yeah.
He wants to get the band back together. I've said that from the start, and I have not changed my mind on this. So, once he gets Crimea, let's say that he, gets it signed, sealed, and delivered. It's all his. Where does he go next? If you were a former Soviet state, you'd be looking very, very carefully over your shoulder and wanting somebody to back you up.
I mean, there's no real point in you and I arguing about it because, what do we know? But at the end of the day, I don't think that's what the end result will be. It will be in this kind of limbo land, which remains to be, administered by Ukraine because it was pointed out to me that they need, apart from anything else, they need water from Ukraine in order to exist. So, but what it will be is just a kind of, it will be almost like a sort of occupied state.
Like a DMZ.
Yeah, almost, which has just got Russians in it, and that'll be kind of how it works because it's been working like that for the last 11 years.
Right, and what is the end game here? I guess it's our guess, but I really do think that Putin has an eye on other places, and he wants NATO out of his backyard.
Yeah.
Period.
I'm sure that's right. Well, we shall see. LaDonna, I thank you very much. We're a bit up against time this morning, I'm afraid, but thanks for joining us. Arizona Morning News, KTAR in Phoenix, Arizona, LaDonna Harvey. Let's get another voice note right now.
Hi, Mike. Daniel from Tel Aviv. And on the Hamas figures, I mean, what a shocker. They've been lying all the way along. As always, I think my biggest complaint goes against the mainstream media who have been taking these numbers as fact, who have been using it as reference points, while Israel from day one has said, do not take these numbers. So, I mean, if you don't take the numbers of Al-Qaeda for the war in Afghanistan or the Kremlin numbers or the Islamic Republic of Iran, why would you trust these numbers and why would you even publish them? Again, nobody's shocked here, just shocked that for the past 2 years they've been using them.
I mean, I say it all the time. Whenever anybody quotes from these numbers, I always say these are Hamas numbers. Well, you shouldn't believe them. And of course, now it turns out that they are in fact untrue and are not in fact in any way to be regarded as accurate. surprise me. Kate says this from Cheshire. Mike, if it's not illegal to arrive in this country by boat, which is the argument used by the pro-immigration movement, why do I, as a British citizen by birth, have to show my passport to get back into my own country when I return from holiday? It clearly states at the airport it is illegal to enter the UK without the correct documentation. These migrants are all entering without any documentation at all, yet that's not deemed illegal. Please explain it to me. Well, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, only not deemed illegal by the sort of Human Rights Brigade and the human rights lawyers, because actually they are arrested when they land and they are quizzed. But of course, if you haven't got any documents, you haven't got any papers, nobody knows who you are. That's why I always say they should be immediately turned around and then dealt with somewhere else. And then you say to them, like Trump is now saying, if you come here illegally, you will never be able to stay. Simple. By the way, just want to give a bit of a shout out to Al Carnes, you know, the Labour Member of Parliament for Birmingham, Selly and Minister for Veterans and People in the Ministry of Defence. We had him on here just a few weeks ago, and we asked him if he would be willing to meet one of our listeners and viewers whose son was tragically killed in that Red Caps massacre, the Red Caps ambush that happened back in the early days of the Iraq War. And he said he would. And we got word from John Miller, who's the parent of the boy who died, that meeting is now going to take place. So if you really don't think that we can make a difference, we can. So I want to say thanks to Al Carnes, because he was a man of his word, unusual in a politician these days. I've been told before that he's a decent guy, and so far I'm very happy to confirm that he is a decent guy, and he's meeting with John Miller and his wife about the death of their son. So we have managed to get that to happen, and I'm very pleased that we have been able to do that. So if you need anything sorted out, come to the Home of Common Sense and we'll see if we can help you. It's 9:41.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:53. I'm Mike Graham with you, of course, all the way through for another 10 minutes or so. Paul on the Gold Coast in Australia says, I'm a Brit living here in Australia. We have lots of problems with healthcare, but nothing like the NHS. It's broke and money isn't the answer. It needs sorting from the top down and quickly. I can see a doctor get a blood test the same day and the results of my doctor 24 hours later. Tests, scans, etc. are all fine outside normal hospitals and makes it so much easier. We do pay something for it, but getting seen quickly and dealt with comes at a price. Yeah, I mean, you know, we could talk about the NHS all day, and we quite often do. We'll come back to Danny, who's got a voice note for us. First, though, Martin Lipton's here, Chief Sports Reporter at The Sun. Big sporting weekend, you'd have to say. Martin, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Michael.
So, Liverpool. What can you say? A record equaling 20th league title. Nobody really saw that coming when Jurgen Klopp left. Everyone thought it was going to be the end of an era, but in fact, it's just the beginning of a new one, isn't it?
Well, they've been excellent this season from the start. They were so consistent. They won the league, I think, in October, November, when they were grinding out wins where others were falling away. Obviously, Manchester City had problems. Arsenal failed to capitalise on their opportunity. The other thing is Liverpool have had the best player in the league by a million miles. Mohamed Salah's top scorer, 28 goals, most assists, 18. That's remarkable. Only Harry Kane a few years ago has managed that double. And they deservedly won the league with 4 games to spare. I don't think there's been any doubt about that. The only issue has been when they won the league. And they were given the ultimate present to play Spurs because they're rubbish at the moment, to be honest. I've got to be truly brutal about that. They were shambles either side, but Liverpool had won the league before Sunday. It was just a copper bottom underlining, dotting I's and crossing T's, but a thoroughly deserved triumph.
Yeah, I mean, I was listening to talkSport the other day, and there was a debate going on about how bonkers has this year been in the Premier League, because it really has been throwing up quite a few strange ones, hasn't it? I mean, Manchester United's collapse, the subjects of, Everton, Spurs, West Ham down at the bottom, when you might not have expected that, whereas you got Nottingham Forest, Aston Villa and Fulham, up at the top end. It's all been a bit mad, hasn't it?
Well, they've been some unusual results. I think the difference is that the 2 of the biggest clubs have horrendously underperformed. And the middle-tier clubs have more than improved. Palace got to the cup final and been excellent.
That was a great game, but I watched that on Saturday.
Terrific. I mean, I thought both games were good. I enjoyed Saturday and Sunday. 2 really good semi-finals. The right team probably wins both. But Forest have had a really great season, and they play Brentford on Thursday. They go back into third if they win that. I mean, it's really tight. The battle is now for the top 5. Arsenal are going to finish second or third. City, I think, will probably end up finishing third or second, depending on what comes with Arsenal, if they take their eye off the ball domestically, if they get through against PSG in Europe. But then 4th and 5th is between 5 teams, and it's going to go to the wire. Chelsea went into 4th at the weekend, but they've got really games. They've got to play Liverpool, United, Newcastle and Villa. So it's really, really close, really interesting. There's something to still watch, but relegation's over, the title's over. The thing that's left is the battle for the top 5.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Aston Villa disappointed, I suppose, on Saturday. But yes, I thought Nottingham Forest yesterday were dreadful. They didn't seem. I mean, I know they hit the post and the bar.
Well, they could
have scored. They could have scored 3 goals
3 times and missed a sitter. So, yeah. I mean, but I can't remember for certain the last time a team came back from 2 down to beat City domestically. I know they lost to PSG this season in the Champions League. I think it was United about 6 years ago. So once you go 2 down against City, it's going to be difficult. They had the chances. First minute of the second half, Elanga's got to score that one. Suddenly it's 1-1, and you may have a different game. But I think they'll feel frustrated that they didn't perform. The problem with Forest is that they don't want the ball. They're a counter-attacking side. And if that doesn't work, they're struggling. When they've got to make the game, they're going to be more open. It's not in their nature. That's not a criticism. It's the way they play.
Yeah.
And it's served them incredibly well this season, including last Monday at Spurs. But it didn't work on Sunday at all.
No, and we've still got the Champions League, of course. Piers Morgan said he's flown back to Britain to watch Arsenal win it. I don't think he's going to be lucky, is he?
Well, he should be. He's in the wrong country then, because they're going to play the final in Germany if they get there. But they've got a massive game against PSG tomorrow, second leg next week. That'll be tough. I think, bizarrely, it might be easier for them if they do go through to play Barcelona in the final, because Barcelona is so open, whereas into a very strong counter-attacking side. They play with 8 back and then break at you. Huge game tomorrow night. I mean, PSG have been arguably the best team in Europe this side of Christmas. Arsenal were outstanding against Real Madrid, no question about that. This is their toughest test yet. Yeah, brilliant stuff. It's all going to be covered in the Sun, of course, brilliantly by you and everybody else. Martin, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Let's get a voice note from Danny.
Morning, Mike. Danny here from Sulsden in West Yorkshire. I've had my laser eye treatment cancelled 3 times now, and each time I even get there without a cancellation letter, and then they tell me it's being cancelled when I get there. I've had to take days off work for this. I'm type 1 diabetic and I'm a HGV mechanic and need my HGV licence to work, basically. Now, they've rebooked me in for the 19th of May, but I can guarantee it gets cancelled. I even took a day off work. They sent me to the wrong hospital. And when I got there, they checked me in 2 hours, sat there, nobody came to see me. So I went to ask, am I having my laser done today or not? I don't know why you're here. We're not even doing laser today. That's the state of it now. Thanks.
God. It's unbelievable, isn't it? Incredible. One from Zoe in Lancashire. Morning, Mike. I've got degenerate disc disease and had to have 2 long spinal rods fitted. Unfortunately, they keep breaking, and I've waited 2 months so far from the first X-ray. They cancelled my MRI twice this month without reason. I'm in now again on the 9th of May. No operation in sight yet. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't see any way that this government can admit that they are fixing the NHS. I've seen no stories at all from anybody this morning. Positive. Nothing. From anyone saying, oh, do you know what? They served me really well. They sorted me out really quickly. You know, I went to see the doctor. Suddenly I was in front of a surgeon. I got my operation that I needed. I mean, just ridiculous. Steve in Cumbria says, Ray, the weather, it won't be wildfire warnings. It's going to be a hosepipe ban, no doubt. It's looking, you know, pretty nice out there today. It's going to be up in the 20s, I think, all week. It could be 24, 25 in London. Get your shorts out and enjoy it, is my advice. It's 9:51.
We made a lot of progress with the last Trump administration in getting the trade deal. Sadly, that was interrupted by COVID and the fallout from that. So that didn't happen. And Biden was against a trade deal with anybody, basically. So we couldn't make any headway. Now Trump's back in play. He has this great affinity with the UK. He has obviously lots of investments in the UK, so it's a much greater likelihood. So we welcome that. Obviously, there's lots of detail behind that. We've got to make sure that the UK industry, our farmers, our food producers are on a fair and level playing field.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 9:54. Just a few moments to go until the end of the show. It's been remarkable this morning. Got lots of really interesting stories from you on the subject of the NHS and the waiting times and, you know, the continued lies that we keep hearing from Labour cabinet members, including yesterday Pat McFadden. who, of course, was complaining that, you know, we've only been in for 9 months, and, yeah, it's not very easy to get these things turned around, but we're really doing it. We're doing it on the NHS front. We're starting to see signs of change. We're starting to see waiting lists coming down for the 6th month in a row. Absolute and utter cobblers. Nan in Wales says, pack McFadden and carry on nursing. Blimey, my daughter's got MS. Her GP's told her, we can't see you for anything to do with your MS, as this is the responsibility of your neurologist and not us. It's a specialist illness. Have you tried getting an appointment with a neuro? She says they see her every 3 years. It is bloody ridiculous. It really is. Here's another one from Michelle in Altrincham. I've been waiting for 3 years to see a back and hip consultant. Every time I ask my doctor, they just say, that doesn't sound right. I'll request it again. But when I chase it up, they just tell me there's a long wait. 3 years. It's a joke. It's incredible, isn't it? Absolutely and utterly ridiculous. Sonia says, morning, Mike. I work on retail. This is on the subject of the people of this country eating too much processed food. It never ceases to amaze me or astonish me how expensive good, wholesome food is compared to sugar-filled quick meals. Even a burger from a fast food place is cheaper than fresh meats. I live on my own. A couple with children on a budget would find it very hard to afford fresh veg and fruit, etc. No wonder fast food is popular. Well, I would take issue with that, actually, Sonia, because if you go and buy vegetables and you can make vegetable soup really, really cheaply, really, really easily, and it's not going to cost you a fortune. I know that sometimes meat has gone up in ridiculous ways lately, and it can be quite difficult to get it cheaply. I understand that. But at the end of the day, you can actually cook, if you're careful, quite cheaply with pretty basic, you know, things like pasta, which doesn't cost an awful lot of money, and also with really decent you know, fruit and veg. You can make vegetable soup, put a bit of bacon in it, put a bit of pancetta in it, which doesn't cost very much. It really isn't expensive. Andy says this: I had to take my 12-year-old son to hospital following a sports injury this weekend. In the questions prior to his X-ray, they asked, now this may seem a strange question, but have you ever had a period? Whilst being quite impressed that my son knew exactly what the question meant, and that he answered no with a somewhat incredulous tone. His father was simply stunned. How much have the NHS spent adding that question to all the online scripts that they follow? Let's get a voice note from Peter on electric vehicles.
Hi, Mike. It's Peter from Worthing. I've got a friend who works for an EV repair company, and one of his colleagues was reprimanded by management for being rude to the customers. And he said, I'd never even met the customer. And they said, no, but when you were working on that car, you said, who could allow a car to get into this filthy state? The car recorded the conversation and played it back to the customer. Mum's the word.
Deary me. Well, I'll tell you what, that gives you some pause for thought, doesn't it? If you're ever in the back of a Tesla being driven around anywhere, if you don't even own it, and you're being recorded with everything that you do and say. Extraordinary. Let's get a word with Jean. She's in Glasgow. Hello, Jean.
Hi, Mike.
How you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. It's just regarding getting appointments cancelled. I have the total opposite.
Yeah.
I developed a lesion on my back. I went to the doctor. He referred me to hospital. Didn't get an appointment for the hospital, but got a letter booking me in for surgery to have a cyst removed from my finger.
What, even though that wasn't the problem?
No. I had a lesion on my back. I hadn't seen it.
That's quite a mistake to make, that. It wasn't that OnlyFans nurse that saw you, was it?
I thought it was funny. I couldn't not laugh at it. I thought, I think an awful lot of the NHS problems is in the admin.
Yeah, definitely. It's absolutely no question about that.
I think it's the old saying, Mike, if you employ clowns, you get a circus.
Yeah, you do. Absolutely right. I can't imagine how they've managed to find so many people who are so useless, though. I mean, they do seem to be unusually useless at everything, and we've heard so much this morning about all of that. This one from Ernie. He says, my daughter left Britain to work in Abu Dhabi. I had enough of this country. Her daughter suffered terribly with sore throats and was on a 2-year waiting list to have her tonsils removed. After working there for 2 weeks, her company paid for the operation, and it was done a week after the doctor had seen her, and the way she was treated was fabulous. Well, that is the problem, you know. It really is. Julie Hartley-Brewer's here. Very good morning,
Hello, very good. Happy Monday morning.
Happy Monday.